We are now live.
All right, good evening. I'd like to bring this meeting of the May 12 Albemarle County Planning Commission to order. May we have the roll call, please?
Yes. Miss Brown,
Present.
Miss King,
Here.
Miss Firehawk,
Here.
Mr. Claiborne,
Here.
Mr. Murray,
Here.
Mr. Moore,
Here.
and Mr. Carazana is absent. Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan. You're playing the role I used to play. Yep, here the one.
Just
All
on
right.
time.
Good evening. Okay, so we will go ahead and proceed. We have now established a quorum. The meeting has begun. One of the first steps on all of our agendas is public comment on matters that are not before the Planning Commission this evening. So something that is not a public hearing this evening, but any matters from the public. And would anyone like to come forward and make a brief presentation? Is there anyone here in the audience who's here for that purpose? Anyone inspired in the moment? Okay. Is there anyone online, Carolyn?
No, ma'am.
All right, we'll end the unscheduled public comment and then move on to the consent agenda. If you open your agendas, you'll find that an item on the consent agenda. There's two things. There's approval of the draft minutes from April 28th, 2026. And then also somewhat unusually, there's also a site plan for SDP 2025-00147 Portico Church Final Site Plan. And the reason I note that that item in particular is unusual is because we don't usually review site plans. I understand this is in this particular application, they had in there that the Planning Commission would provide some review of the site plan. I've been informed by staff that the site plan currently meets all of the required standards of the county. So there isn't really anything for us to edit, but I just wanted to point that out. So those are the two items. We can move them both together as the consent agenda, or if you would like to pull one of the items for further discussion, you certainly may. So is there a motion to either adopt, move them forward, or to discuss?
I move to move them forward.
Okay, there's a second?
Second.
Okay, that's been, consent agenda has been motioned and seconded, so let's have the vote.
Okay. Mr. Moore,
Aye.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Mr. Claiborne,
Aye.
Miss Firehawk,
Aye.
Miss King,
Aye.
Miss Brown.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The consent agenda is moved forward, and now we'll move on to our first public hearing of the evening, AFD 2026-0001, Lanark AFD withdrawal. And so I think we have a presentation from staff for that. Thank you.
Good evening, Planning Commission and members of the public. I'm James Van Vrenken, a planner in the Conservation Program. We're reviewing 3 applications tonight, 2 applications to add land to districts, 1 application to withdraw land from a district. In all cases, the board is the deciding body. We're asking tonight for your recommendation to the board. And just to give a quick rundown of the order of business, there are 3 applications. Each one is a separate public hearing, separate motion, separate presentation. Each one should be fairly quick, we hope. But just to kind of set the scene for that. And before we look at the withdrawal specifically, I wanted to give a brief background of the program. I know most of you have heard this before, but for those who haven't, the county has 3 conservation programs. I think the most famous of which is the Conservation Easement Program. That's when landowners make agreements to put permanent restrictive protections on their land. The AFD program is sort of a halfway step to that. It's not a permanent commitment. It tends to be a 5 to 10 year commitment, and the restrictions are not quite as onerous as they would be for a conservation easement. And there are certain benefits to landowners for being in this program, including higher review standards for things like special use permits in or adjacent to districts. It can also be used as a qualification for the land use tax program, but that is a separate program. They're often, the AFD program and the land use program are often conflated. They're separate programs. Most parcels in land use are not in an AFD. Most parcels in an AFD are not using the AFD to qualify for land use, but it can be used as a qualification for one type of land use. And importantly, the benefits to the community are the restrictions it places on parcels, namely a prohibition on using small lot development rights. And just to explain what that means briefly, in the rural area, any landowner can subdivide their property into as many parcels as they want, so long as each parcel is 21 acres or larger. There are also what's called small lot development rights, which are exceptions to that rule, which allow some landowners to subdivide and create parcels as small as 2 acres. When parcels are in an AFD, they cannot use those small lot development rights, generally speaking. And so you can see here a depiction of the kind of theoretical maximum in the conservation program, out of the conservation program. I can take questions generally about the program later if you have them, but we'll move on now to the specific application for withdrawal. There are 4 opportunities to withdraw from a district. This is laid out in the county code. The first is a bit meaningless. It's just before an application has been adopted, a landowner can withdraw. The second is the most common. That's during the regular district reviews. Districts are reviewed every 5 to 10 years. And at that time, landowners can come out of the program just by telling us they want to, and it's done. That's by right. The third is when a landowner dies, their heirs can similarly notify us that they want to withdraw from the program, and that also happens by right. And the fourth type of withdrawal, which is the one we're reviewing tonight, is by application to the Board of Supervisors. So this is between district review periods. It's kind of a special application asking for special permission to come out of a district. The district in question is the Lanark district. We're south of Charlottesville here on Carter's Mountain Road, close to Blenheim Vineyard, and the parcel in question is highlighted in green. Zooming into that parcel, you can see here outlined in red, it's a forested parcel fronting on President's Road. Most of it is hardwood forest. The portion highlighted in blue is a home site. It has an old house, accessory structures, agricultural buildings, used to be a cleared house site and now grown up in cedar. And zooming into that blue portion, again, here's a closer look. The proposal is to withdraw just this 7.5 acre portion of the parcel from the district because the landowners wish to use one of those small lot development rights to subdivide, create a 7.5 acre parcel and sell it to the applicant. The proposal says that no extra development rights would be transferred with that subdivision. So what would be created would be the 7.5 acre parcel, the one house, no further development potential. The remainder, the 43 acre residue, would stay in the district. When the board looks at these applications and reviews them, it must be based on the following criteria. Staff has analyzed this application against these 4 criteria, which are in pages 2 and 3 of the staff report. We can talk about that in more detail if you have questions about any of that analysis. Generally speaking, there's no new land use being proposed. That's an important part of some of these criteria. It asks, is the new land use detrimental to agriculture and forestry? Is the new land use consistent with the comprehensive plan? The house is already there. There is no new land use. That subdivision, the kind of splitting of the parcel, change of ownership, staff believes has no adverse impact on the landowners remaining in the district to engage in agriculture and forestry. This portion is not being taken out of forestry. It's already a residential portion. On the other hand, the withdrawal is mostly in the interest of the landowner, not in the public interest. And while the proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan, we can't put conditions on these as we would for a special use permit. So there's nothing holding them to not allocate more development rights to this small portion. There's no way we can make them kind of promise to do that. So it's possible theoretically that they could turn around once, if this is approved, make the division, allocate 2 extra development rights, and then you could have 2 extra houses that wouldn't otherwise have been possible. But the proposal as it's been made is consistent. We just can't put conditions on it. So on the balance of those things, staff recommended approval of the withdrawal, and the AFD committee recommended the same on a vote of 6-1. I'm happy to answer any questions now, and the applicant is here as well, is ready to speak when that's done.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions for staff on this application? We'll start, I guess, at this end and wander that way.
I don't have any questions about the Lenark removal.
So, excuse me, how many division rights does it have? Small division rights? Collectively?
I believe it has 5.
Okay, so it has small, so potentially there could be, so, all right. And so the idea is the others would be still distributed on that other parcel that's.
The intention is for 4 to remain with the residue and 1 to be with this 7-acre portion, the one that has to be used in order to create the 7-acre parcel.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Could you repeat the worst case scenario again if the development rights were allocated to 7-acre?
Yeah.
Could you just walk me through that?
Yeah,
again?
the worst case scenario is that 3 of those development rights are allocated to the 7-acre portion. If that were the case, that 7-acre parcel could then be split further into 3 parcels as small as 2 acres.
Okay.
That's the sort of development that the AFD program is intended to restrict and limit. So if that were to happen, that would be kind of against the purposes of the AFD program and not consistent with the comprehensive plan. It would be creating 2 new units in the rural area.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I've been on this commission probably 6 years now, maybe something like that. And the whole thing is so fuzzy to me. So I feel like I ask the same question every time. And then I noticed it was a 6-1 vote. Could you share a little bit about the dissenting vote and how that came about? So
Yeah, the AFD committee was generally supportive of the applicant's proposal and intention, but there was some concern that this is a commitment that they make for however long, in this case, 10 years. And this is a new ownership, but even so, the new owners kind of signed on to the commitment when they bought the property. And there was a feeling that they should be held to that.
got you. Thank you.
I'll just ask a very quick question. Is it the case then that there's only 3 years left in this district's
Yes.
tenure period anyway?
Yeah.
Okay. Mary Catherine?
No questions. No questions.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to ask staff, or if not, we'll move to find out if the applicant wants to give a presentation or make comments. I just want to ask if the applicant, Mr. Baron Sally, would like to make any comments to the commission. It's not required, but you have that opportunity. Yes, come on up.
Thank you for everyone's time being here tonight. I know public service is a selfless sacrifice and the community appreciates it.
Of course. Could you just say your name again, John?
Oh,
and-
sorry, my name is
and to-
John Baroncelli and I'm here with my wife, Rachel Leith, and we are the individuals that would like to purchase the 7.5 acres property after it's subdivided. Thank you, James. I think James did a good job of pretty much laying down everything that was a concern here. From the questions that I heard, it sounds like one of the main concerns would be that there's no guarantee to hold us to the, promise that we are not going to transfer any development rights to this new parcel. But if I could give some background on why this purchase came about, maybe that could put some of those fears to rest. The two individuals that purchased the 50-acre property, they did so with no intention of developing on the property. They're very much happy. They did so to create a buffer of privacy and no development to their family members' properties, the three of which are all adjoining that back 42.5 acres. The 7.5 acres does not border any of their family members' properties. And they also see the house as a liability to themselves because it is in such a bad state of disrepair that you would have to have certain concerns over tort liability if somebody were even to enter onto the property. There's such a grave danger of somebody hurting themselves. And so without any, they have no reason that they want to develop the 42.5 acres. They want to then eventually pass that on to their children, which will then be able to provide further protection from their children's property for future development. And in that same line of thought, they would not have any interest in providing any additional development rights to the 7.5 acres because that defeats the purpose of the development buffer that they're trying to create from the purchase to begin with. As opposed to whether you have any enforceability over that, yes, James is correct. Technically, I could go back and I could pay him some extra money on the side and say, give me an extra development right. For one, it's an arm's length transaction and he has, for those same reasons I've stated, has no reasons in doing so. But on the other hand, we would have no issue presenting a contract of sale to the county showing that we've signed an agreement, as an example, stating that there will be no new development rights presented or provided to the new parcel. Just an idea that I could throw out there. I don't know if anyone has any comments or concerns on that. And then if you could remind me again, what was the other question that I believe came up?
It was really primarily around the development rights and whether, and how many rights there would be with this conversion
Oh,
and
sure,
removal from the district.
sure,
I think that's basically
Yeah,
what we're all trying to get at.
Yeah.
sure. And if the individuals were interested in development, it would be totally illogical to not start with the part of the property that already has the well, the septic, the electric, and a solid foundation on the property. To have to get electric, septic, perk, all of that thing to the back 42.5 acres would be an absolute nightmare from somebody that builds for a living. That would not be the place I would start by any means.
Okay, if that's the end of your basic presentation, we can ask you more questions.
Oh, I believe so. Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
I didn't mean to rush you. All right, is there any questions that you all would like to ask the applicant?
So since this is at the front of the property and any future division would require road frontage, is there going to be a right of way or something else accorded through that property?
So there's two options. Either I'm going to provide him an easement. There's a driveway that is on close to the left side of the property and actually runs fairly close to where that 7.5 acre boundary lies. So I would just provide him an easement right away to use that driveway and then to extend that past the 7.5 acres. But, or in the alternative, their children and, Eugenia's child and grandchildren live in an adjacent property from the back right corner. And if there was any reason to do so, they would also possibly just provide a right of way through their family member's property. But again, the purpose of this is not to, there was no intention to, conclude any further building on the property. It was just to maintain it as privacy and wooded acreage. Did that answer your question?
Yep, thanks.
All right, any other questions from the commission? If not, we'll let you return to your seat and open it up to the public, if anyone else from the public would like to speak.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much. I'll just open the public hearing. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to this matter in the auditorium? Seeing no one rush to the podium, is there anyone online? Okay, well, that is the end of that public hearing, and we'll take it back to the commission for deliberation.
I guess, I mean, I'm in support of this. I do have a minor concern in the sense that, we do offer, so they do get a tax break for this parcel, right?
Mhm.
So I am concerned that that 10-year period, right, is not expired, but they've gotten that break throughout that period. And haven't reached.
Maybe we'll get clarification from staff on that, because
Yeah.
I know where you're going with this. Would they have to pay the back tax, the taxes that were lessened for the past 7 years for getting out of the district early?
That's a good question. 43 acres of the parcel, basically most of the back portion, is currently in forestry land use. So they're qualifying through a forestry plan, has no relevance to the district. They're not qualifying through their membership in the district.
Okay.
So they could take the whole parcel out and the tax rate would be the same because they still have that qualification. The district doesn't affect it. It's possible that there's maybe half an acre that is currently in forestry that would be part of the residential parcel and kind of taken out of that forestry qualification. They would have to pay back taxes on that half acre.
Okay, but it's it sounds like a negligible, if almost no impact tax wise.
But-
Okay,
But since the new parcel would be smaller than, would qualify for forestry, which I believe is 20 acres. 20
Yeah.
Yeah, then, that parcel would have to pay back taxes, correct?
That portion of the parcel is currently paying full rate market tax.
it's only, I
Oh,
think
it
it's
is.
only the
It's all-
part that's being,
that's
is
true.
forested that could be used for forestry that's getting that break.
Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you for that clarification. Sorry,
It is complicated. We have to ask every time. And the fact that they could have land use taxation, which lowers the tax bill, is also, and it can be an AFD at the same time. It's kind of confusing.
I mean,
So-
it's only if they're getting there's only one classification of land use that's tied to the AFDs, and it sounds like they're not using that one, so.
Right. Right. So they'd continue on. Nathan, did you have a question?
No, we were just discussing, I was just gonna, before Commissioner
you're-
Murray jumped in, I was gonna say I have no objection to this particular proposal.
Okay, thank you. Brian, do you have anything to add? Anyone else?
No, I think it's for that clarification though.
Okay, great. So I also don't have any objection to this application. The applicant also put a very lengthy description of intentions to also redevelop, I shouldn't say redevelop, to restore the house that's on the property. And so it is also bringing back into our housing stock, new, housing that was dilapidated, but would be restored as part of this. They're not proffering that per se or anything. It's not that kind of application, but they did go into a lot of detail on that for the public's benefit. So if we could, I guess we have a potential motion. Is somebody willing to make a motion?
Sure. I move to recommend approval of AFD 2026-00001 Lantern District withdrawal.
Is there a second? Second. You can do the next one. All right. Thank you. Any discussion? All right, it's a pretty straightforward application with very low impact, so I think we can move forward with the vote.
Okay. Miss Brown,
Aye.
Miss King,
Aye.
Miss Firehawk,
Aye.
Mr. Claiborne,
Aye.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, the motion passes unanimously, and that will move on to the Board of Supervisors. When we have a next staff report, I got to turn my paper over to get this number. AFD 2026-00002 Green Mountain AFD Addition. And then also AFD 2026-0003 Chalk Mountain AFD edition. I believe we're going to have both editions in the same presentation.
Yes, but we'll have a public hearing for each of them, I think.
Understood.
So I think I'll present the first one and then we can do the public hearing and then I present the second.
Okay.
So the first is an application to join the Green Mountain District. The Green Mountain District, we're just to the north of Esmont here on Green Mountain Road and Secretary Sand. Currently comprised of 6 parcels, 1,200 acres, was formed in 2015. The parcels proposed to join are those shown in pink. It's 2 parcels for 750 acres under the same ownership. They're in active agriculture and forestry, and both parcels are under a conservation easement held by the county. Parcels under conservation easement are eligible to join the districts. As I said before, the easements are a higher level of protection. So there's not so much benefit to the county to add these to the district, but there's also no cost. The districts can't impact their tax rate, and some landowners feel a sort of kinship and collective strength by expanding these districts and being in partnership with their neighbors in that way. I think that's all I have to say. Again, staff recommended approval and the AFD committee concurred. I'm
Okay.
happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you. Questions for staff on this one?
I was curious about the current uses of the 2 parcels. We got 128-1 to the south, which in the report said had been used for forestry. I was just curious about kind of the forestry uses, the sort of nature of the forestry operation on that parcel.
Yeah. Let's see. Here's a satellite view of the properties. As you can see, the parcel to the south is mostly wooded. Those cleared areas were mostly pine, a bit of hardwood, and were cleared, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago. And they're, as far as I know, still in active forestry, so they've been replanted. We'll kind of start the cycle over again. And there's a small area of pasture in the north, but again, most of that is under forestry as well.
And then the parcel to the north, I guess that's 120-20. Is that one being used for ag or forestry at this point? When I see trees, I just don't know if it's an active forestry operation or just woods.
I don't know what the landowner's plans are for that. I think the county kind of considers any large patch of hardwood forest as potentially for forestry, because it's not like an annual crop where you either harvest it or you don't. It's something that can sustain forestry.
Yeah, and then I did see, and thanks for mentioning it also, these parcels are already using they're under a conservation easement. So I was wondering what then are the additional implications of adding these to an AFD? Is there some additional land use valuation that comes with it? Does that already come with the conservation easement? Sort of what's the motivation on joining the AFD when there's already a conservation easement?
There's no impact on tax rate here. There are a couple of restrictions that are part of the AFD program that aren't part of the conservation easement program. The one that I can think of is that they would not, if they joined the district, they would not be allowed to do short-term rentals, Airbnbs. The conservation easement currently allows that, the AFD program doesn't. And if these parcels applied for a special use permit, then there would be additional hurdles for that as part of the SP review process. Also, if parcels adjacent to these applied for an SP and they were in the district, then again, there would be an additional step where that SP review would go to the AFD committee. I can't think of any other additional protections.
Thanks. I appreciate the explanation. And then this is not a particularly important question, but one that I was just kind of wondering about looking at the two different maps of this as well as the Chalk Mountain AFD edition that are proposed. The map showed, sort of respectively Green Mountain AFD and Chalk Mountain AFD, and then other AFDs that actually border more of the parcels. And I was just curious what the calculus is in deciding to join, say, Chalk Mountain instead of the one it touches, or Green Mountain instead of, the one it touches more.
Yeah.
Not really a big deal. I was just
Yeah,
curious.
yeah. Parcels have to be within a mile of a district in order to join them.
Yeah.
And in both cases, these two could have joined
Either
one
one.
of two
Yeah.
districts. In both cases, I believe the landowners have a relationship with landowners in one district and not the other. They kind of feel, in this case, more connection with the Green Mountain region. And so they feel like their land is part of that, even though it does touch another district as well.
Have a Green Mountain Club.
It has a strong identity. I
Yeah.
can say that, yeah.
Got it. Thanks for the info, the intel.
There's a lot of forestry going on down in that part of the county.
Yeah, no, I know
Actively, yeah.
there are spots. I was just asking about this particular.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Other questions for staff? Okay, hearing none, then I will also ask if the applicant here tonight and they would like to make a presentation, no, they're not,
I
okay.
don't believe so.
All right, then if we don't have any further presentations on this, we'll open the public hearing and ask if there's anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this proposed addition to the Green Mountain AFD. Nope. Is there anyone online, Carolyn?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right, well, that's the end of that public hearing. All right, we'll move back to discussion and deliberation with the Planning Commission, or I'll also be happy to entertain a motion.
I'd be willing to entertain a motion, make a motion, sorry. Sorry.
I'm entertaining your making.
Yeah, I know. Clearly should have got more sleep. I move to recommend approval of AFD 2026-00002 Green Mountain District Edition.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
I don't have a discussion per se specific to this AFD. It's fine. But I do have questions that I don't know if there's another spot for me to ask them just more broadly about AFDs. And so I just wanted to kind of see if there might be some information sessions in the future that we might be able to get. I was looking at our county's code about ag and forestal districts, the chapter 3 section, and the code names sort of 4 reasons why we have these ag forestal districts. And certainly conservation is the one we all kind of know about. And there's 2 others though that we don't hear much about. One is, production of food and other agricultural and forestal products, as well as a strong agricultural and forestal economy. And so when we get proposals about renewing or adding AFDs, I'm always really curious to just sort of like have information about what food they're producing or what ag products or how they, like, what is the impact on the ag economy. Some farms are very successful and definitely add to the ag economy, and some, mow hay once a year. There's 2 of the 4 reasons are kind of key reasons why we invest in so much time and effort into these AFDs and money too, with the land use valuation that goes with it. It's cumulatively millions of dollars a year. So this is just sort of a question for staff in the future, maybe if we can, about what information we have about production of food and products from AFDs. And then also just information, stats we might have or not have about how AFDs contribute to the county's economy. That's just, I would like to see kind of what goals we've got with these and information to see if we're meeting them.
Okay, I made a note of that to bring that up with the chair, and
Thanks.
I think it would be nice sometime to have a longer discussion. We've had a lot of discussions about them, but we're always somewhat hampered by the fact that we need to get on and have a vote, and not turn it into a work session. So
Sure,
perhaps
totally.
scheduling a separate
Yeah,
conversation and getting into some of the history of these.
or
would
even,
be
just the
good.
numbers a little bit too, in terms of if this is an economic benefit, what and how much, and what should we invest, and how can we tweak it for other priorities like younger producers or more equitable producers, whatever it might be.
Yeah, and also just for the people who might be listening online, we do have the AFD committee whose
Mhm.
job is to really look through and consider these.
Totally. Yeah.
And then and sometimes, as we heard tonight, sometimes there's disagreement among the AFD, and then it's hard for us to sometimes sort out what that was about also.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Commissioner Farrar.
Well,
All
I mean,
right.
I would also be
Yeah.
interested in just, I mean, maybe, and maybe not to load too much into the rural area plan, but have a discussion about our conservation programs in total and looking at like the costs and benefits of each program, you know, paired together and look and see how they play against each other, how they work together. You know, what benefits do they offer the county? So
Yeah.
we can sort of compare and contrast the different conservation programs.
I think that's a great idea. And I would say too that I have some strong opinions about some programs that might be really working well and some that might not be really serving the aims that we hoped for. I'll just leave it at that. So I'll save that for another time. Anything else about this particular application that we want to discuss before moving to a vote? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion for this, either to move it forward or deny?
We already have one.
Oh, call for the,
Ready for a vote?
oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Yes, vote, thank you. I also need more sleep. A very late board meeting last night. All right.
Mr. Moore,
Hi.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Mr. Claiborne,
Aye.
Ms. Firehawk,
Sure, I'm still here.
Ms. King,
Aye.
Ms. Brown.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your patience. All right. And we will move on now to AFD 2026-003 Chalk Mountain AFD edition.
Thank you. So similarly, this is an application to add land to a district, in this case, the Chalk Mountain District, on Chalk Mountain, north of Colesville, just southwest of North Garden and Dr. Ho's. The proposed addition is one parcel for 234 acres, which has one unused development right. That's an important part of eligibility for these districts, because that's the main restriction that districts impose on land. So in this case, the landowners, while they're in the district, would not be able to utilize that one small lot development right. Again, staff recommended approval and the AFD committee concurred. Happy to take any questions.
All right. Questions for staff? We can start at this end. Questions about the Chalk Mountain? Nope. Okay. Well, all right. So that's the end of that question session. Is the applicant here this evening? Or Chalk
Believe so.
Mountain? No, okay. All right, then we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Would anyone in the public like to speak to this application? Carolyn, I assume there's no one online?
Nobody with their hand up.
All right. That is the end of this public hearing. All right, back to deliberation by the commission.
So one thing I'd like to mention is that I support this, but one of the reasons I support this is actually the Natural Heritage Committee has identified a number of places throughout the county that we call biodiversity hotspots. And Chalk Mountain is one of those biodiversity hotspots that's known for unique habitats and plant life that doesn't occur in other places. There's actually what's called a G1 habitat in close proximity to this parcel. G1 habitats are the rarest habitats in the world. And so there are less than 15 occurrences of this particular habitat in the world. And so on that basis, I do think that any conservation measures in this area are something that we should support. I mean, I'd rather see conservation easements, but I'll take what I can get.
Okay.
I will call out, though, it is unfortunate to see this is one of the examples that I've often brought up of what I call barcoding that we have in the county, where you see that we've divided the steep mountain slopes into these narrow strips that are almost unusable. And this parcel is an exception to that right now. It's not been yet barcoded, as it were, into a narrow strip. But you see a lot of the other ones nearby that certainly have been. And that makes it difficult to difficult to use for forestry, difficult to use for land management. If you wanted to manage invasive species on there, it'd be difficult, like trying to figure out which is your parcel and which is the neighbor's. So
Okay,
that's in my.
thank you. And I'm sure the species would thank you as well.
Hmm.
Right. Any other comments? All right, if not, would someone like to make a motion?
I'll move to recommend approval of AFD 2026-0003 Chalk Mountain District Edition.
Second.
All right, motioned and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, now we'll call for the vote.
Okay. Ms. Brown,
Aye.
Ms. King,
Aye.
Ms. Firehawk,
Aye.
Mr. Claiborne,
Aye.
Mr. Murray,
Aye.
Mr. Moore.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. It passes unanimously and goes on to the board. So I will move to the next item, which is a review of our zoning updates, which I can somehow not find in my chair's agenda. So I'll just go back to my own agenda on my tablet. Okay, we're going to move now into a work session for ZTA 2022-4502 zoning modernization phase 2, and we'll have a presentation from Leah Brumfield.
Thank you very much, Ms. Firehawk. Get the, oh, wrong button. It helps if you plug it in. There we go. As noted, my name is Leah Brumfield. I am a senior planner 2 in the zoning division of community development. And today we have a work session on the zoning modernization work that staff has been doing for the past couple of months. We are focusing specifically today on Articles 4 and 6 of outlined in the draft layout for the new ordinance. In this work session, will go over a quick review of our progress, our current work, a couple of upcoming dates, summarize some of the changes in the articles, and then I will be bringing to the commission for discussion the topics that we're looking to get some feedback on, delve into those, and then give you an overview of the language changes that also we want to just keep you apprised of, even though we don't really have specific topics for discussion on those particular aspects. So the two articles we're discussing today are Article 4, which will be the location for all the primary zoning district regulations, and Article 6, which will be the location of the use permissions, which currently in our ordinance are in long lists, and in the new ordinance will be in a much more easier to read table. These are the drafted outlines for these two sections shown on the screen right now. It does slightly arrange our zoning district orders. And also I wanted to note that our overlay districts will be in their own article, Article 5. So they would not be under the primary zoning districts article. So far in phase 2, we have been working with the primary zoning districts in Article 4, clarifying, consolidating language, rewriting the intent and purpose kind of statements, the how things apply kind of statements, and then also working with Municode to make our tables work. And I'll give you an example of that on the next slide. But we want to make sure that the work we're doing and outlining will play nicely with the limitations of Municode, and also that it will meet all the accessibility guidelines and standards. For example, anyone reading with a screen reader will be able to still easily access the information. Article 6, we have been doing a very long, involved series of reviews, consolidating those sprawling lists of uses. So our work there has been to untangle all those different kinds of uses, finds which ones might have been intended to be the same use, but had one word changed over the course of time, something that had a different definition, and then which ones look similar, but may actually have completely different intentions for those two uses. So on the public outreach side of this project, we did recently release our very first zoning modernization Let's Talk Albemarle podcast episode. And while I will not be listening to myself on that podcast, I encourage everyone else to listen to it. It is Zoning 101. It is available anywhere you get your podcasts. The most recent Let's Talk Albemarle one. We also started building up our learning library on our Engage website, which has complimentary learning documents for that podcast for the topic of Zoning 101, kind of delving into that with different ways of explaining it. So looking at our timeline, we're at the star. It's a great place to be. We are moving along. Our next couple of dates that we're looking forward to will be our June work session and beginning outreach for our topic groups for phase 3 for our larger comp plan integration into the zoning ordinance. Throughout all of this, we are drafting new language with staff and reviewing and editing all the time. So a couple of the few discussion topics that we have, we would greatly appreciate the feedback on. First up, our topics in Article 4. The majority of the work in Article 4 is, as mentioned, moving the ordinance regulations from current sections in the ordinance. Some is in Article 4, some is in our current articles, Section 4, and some is in Article 3, which has all of our district regulations. And we're moving that into a more logical order, and we're outlining each district standards in that type table format, making it much easier to read. So this is the type of table that we're looking at. On the left, we have a table from the Fairfax ordinance. It has a very simple, readable layout. And then the example on the right is from Charlottesville. It has a little bit more involved graphic look to it. We are currently looking to determine what resources we have for creating the graphics, but the tables will largely be designed in-house in collaboration with Unicode to make sure that we have that accessibility aspect to that. So our first discussion topic, which I guess is the first big change to the ordinance, is regarding 1 foot setback for accessory structures. Currently, we have inconsistent accessory structure setbacks across various development types and build on the different districts. For anyone who is not in the know of, has not read the zoning 101 on the Engage website yet, an infill development is one in which the neighborhood is largely built up. You are filling in a property that was either demolished or on an empty lot, but overall in a developed neighborhood. A non-infill one is usually a greenfield site or a site with their very large lots, no neighbors within 500 feet on either side. So we currently have different regulations for infill versus non-infill, regardless of zoning district for accessory structures. And we are proposing standardizing the setbacks for accessory structures, which is a change of 1 foot, reducing the setbacks to 5 feet in all districts. So that's a reduction for non-infill and for rural area. This is a simpler, just a more understandable figure. It has consistency across the districts, and it's also in line with the 10-foot building separation preferred by the building code. So it's a very straightforward kind of thing. We would keep 10-foot standard building separation that's aside from the setbacks. So if your neighbor has a non-conforming accessory structure 1 foot away from your property line, you still have to build 9 feet back. That is from the building code. That's not from us. That's not from zoning regulations. And then also we have an additional setback for shared easements and shared driveways. So that would be separate. That would not be changed in this situation. And I wanted to ask, did the commission have any feedback on this topic at this time?
I'm piece about the 5-foot setback and then the 3-foot setback. Oh, sorry. So with the 3-foot setback trump the 5-foot setback? If it was
So-
on a shared alley?
So the shared alleys are on top of the land and the setback is from the property boundary. So you may have a easement on top of your property. So if you were, this is more applicable in the rural area, for example, where you have two lots, only one of them fronts the actual road. There will be an easement going through your property to your neighbor's property who lives behind you. And so the boundary line is still 5 feet for your accessory structures from the actual property boundaries. But you still can't build on the easement or else you're blocking their access to
Okay,
their
got it.
driveway. And so that's an additional 3 feet just from that easement. Even though that's not a property boundary, there's still a 3 feet from that easement.
Okay, got it.
My question is just, if you could help me understand, and you mentioned this a little bit, but I just make sure I understand the difference between in this application, what's considered infill and non-infill.
We have a very specific definition, which is that the infill regulations are whether there is another house within 500 feet of the site of the house you're building. So usually that means if you have a new development, they're breaking ground, they're clearing all the land, they're putting in new streets, that's a non-infill development. Most of the developed neighborhoods where you have an established neighborhood and someone was lucky enough to have a double lot and they decided to sell that second lot and now you're developing a house there, that's an infill development.
So the answer is 5 feet.
Yes.
And this regulation is going to apply to all districts, so that would include inside the development area.
Yes.
So someone who currently had a by right ability in the development area in an infill situation would still have to instead of being 6, it would be 5.
Yes, it would be slightly easier for them. They would have an additional foot to work with. And this is only for accessory structures. This is not primary structures. This is only the shed in the backyard, or a gazebo, or I'm not sure what else kind of accessory structures we're gonna have in residential developments, but a garage, a detached garage,
Not a dwelling.
not a dwelling, no.
I'll just say,
Go ahead.
well, I'll just say quick, I mean, the reason I'm asking is because in areas where we want to increase development and we want density, could there not be a situation where you might have a smaller lot and want to put, not have a lot of room for your, like, I know that's a different question because I'm talking about not their change, but the 5 foot and infill seems maybe not necessary, but that's a different topic, obviously.
Well, we have had in the past, and I'll let staff answer that question, but we have had people who ask for reductions in setbacks. We've also had situations where somebody, say, is doing a planned unit development and they're arranging the buildings differently on the site. And so some of those things might also change, but
Sure.
staff, go ahead.
Sure. So currently we have 6 feet for the infill development. So this is making it a little bit easier for them. But the reason we did stick with the 5 foot is because the building code requires all buildings with a standard, and I apologize to our building official if I am saying this incorrectly. But from what I understand, it is a standard fire rating that you build in most buildings. You want each building to be 10 feet away from the other. So that means that if you're dividing it evenly, you need to be 5 feet away from your property boundary. Your neighbor needs to be 5 feet away from their property boundary. So that's why we have the 5 feet.
Thank you.
I
That
think
was
the
helpful.
consistency is certainly something to think about, makes it a lot easier for people. Yeah, I like the, the notion to make it consistent. It's more easier.
I'm not sure we could hear you down here.
It just makes it more user friendly to make it consistent.
Of
I don't-
course, yes.
I-
Okay, thank you. Any comments down here or questions?
Not so many questions on the accessory structure setbacks. I mean, just sort of standardizing across the board, whatever number of feet we decide, just kind of makes sense. I did have a question on the step back triggers. So going from 40 to 50 feet or 3 stories to 4, how often do we have proposals these days that are in that kind of range that would now be exempted from the trigger?
Well, I will go ahead and ask the Vice Chair Firehawk if we are ready to move on, because that is the next slide.
Oh, my bad. Sorry, I'm ahead of myself.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you because I'm choking over here. Not because I'm too excited.
I was just going to ask if we are ready to move on to the next slide.
I think so. I think
Okay.
if, because this is
I was
slightly
looking ahead.
different.
Yeah, I was looking ahead. I got excited by.
I don't think we've heard any objections to this. I think everyone's generally in support. So go ahead, please.
Great. Yes, so second topic of discussion is the long promised increase on step back triggers. These do mostly end up getting applied to multifamily and hotel properties, occasionally larger commercial buildings. But they could theoretically apply to any building type if the building was tall enough. Current regulations, are for a building to step back, so be further back from the street above 3 stories in height. So 1, 2, 3 at the regular setback, and then an additional setback applies for that 4th story, or for any story that starts above 40 feet in height. So if you have 2 gigantic stories, 2 20 feet tall stories, I'm not sure why you would build that, then your 3rd story would need to be set back as well. Since 2019, we've received 27 applications for setback waivers. Those have gone to the Board of Supervisors. 25 of those have been approved. The last 2 are still under review. So this has been a very consistent application of change. The waivers have been found to have no real impact on the developments. And the majority of these applications were for structures that were 4 stories in height, and requesting that 4th story not have the setback applied for it. So if we want to jump right in.
Well, that answered the first question I had. Thank you for having it all laid out there in text too. The other question that's very related was just how often or how many proposals have we gotten for more than 4 stories or more than 50 feet?
We do have some. I did about an hour of searching on research on this, and it was frustrating. But I did notice 3 different applications that were for higher than the 4th stories. Those were located on hillsides where it was a strange offset kind of situation, or there was one that was in a building campus near UVA that is just a very large structure, and it's in the middle of a field essentially.
So in other words, this increase from 40 to 50 feet or 4 stories, you feel like that'll scoop up most of these and, make
That
them
would
administrative.
greatly reduce these, yes.
Okay, that was my question.
Okay. Other comments or questions? I think most of us welcome this because we keep talking about these and keep granting them. Go ahead. Okay,
I'm fine with it.
all right.
Quick question. Do we need to say anything about, I guess a lot of times when we get the step back exception, it's because nothing is around it, right? And so is that something we need to speak on in terms of zoning modernization, like when this is actually applicable versus, if it's in the middle of nowhere, we don't need a step back, right? So I thought it was to prevent, canyon effects and things like that.
Yeah, it absolutely is to prevent the canyon effects. I think that the requests that we've gotten, and I think the buildings that we've had built in the county, even when they are more infill type developments or on a busier road, the fourth story has not negatively impacted anyone to the point where they have stopped approving these. And staff has repeatedly found no factors unfavorable for that increase. I don't know if we need to differentiate
Okay.
between the two, just because we
Okay.
are trying to get more density, and this is frequently the thing that is argued, so.
Okay.
Out of curiosity, do you know what the requirements are for buildings in the city?
They have a much more complicated system. I can't quote exact numbers, but I do know that their step backs are based on which streets they're on, because they have more, they have their West Main, I'm not even sure what it's called, but their West Main district, and then of course the downtown district, and they have vastly different regulations there.
Other comments or questions?
Oh.
I can go, but go ahead.
Oh, I'll go first. I just think, you know, I don't have a ton of knowledge about step backs or the history of step backs or the purpose of them. You know, I'm familiar with the caning effect, but you know, primarily I think that this type of regulation is certainly more necessary or effective in like highly urban areas, which we don't really have in Albemarle County. So to me, it could be even further loosened, would be my comment.
I'll add that, I feel I've been on this commission, this is my 100th term, I believe. I'm just kidding. But, um, I recall that I can't recall a case in which we, denied one. And yes, it is, the regulation as originally written is to deal with that canyon effect. But when we were getting these larger buildings, they tend to be not right up on the street, or they tend to be on a larger road so that there isn't that effect. So it really hasn't been something that's been an issue for us in the county. And I guess the other part of that is we've always been trying to get more density or more efficient use of the urban land that we do have in the development area. And so to make a developer come here and have, like, I'll just cite Valerie Long explaining to us yet again why, doing this special story with this setback reduces the viability of having, say, like in a hotel situation, rooms on both sides of a hallway, or, just all of the logistics and the cost of coming to us for something that I guess 99.9% of the time we grant it. But it does cost the staff as well, because they have to put that into the development pipeline, et cetera. So I think this is just recognizing, like you said, the patterns of development we already have here, and then also just the practical reality of year after year after year, us sitting up here reviewing and then granting. So I think it makes sense, I think is the general consensus here. All right, so if you
Great.
want to, we can move to the next one.
Thank you. Yes, so that's pretty much all of the discussion that we had for Article 4. It was pretty straightforward. There's not really a lot of changes there, because we're mostly just transferring the regulations from one format to a more easily readable format. Moving on Article 6, we do have the permitted uses chart. This is an example screenshot. This is the chart from Loudoun County. This is more what we're looking for in our uses chart, showing the districts and then which uses are going to be permitted by legislative action, by administrative action, or not at all in that particular district. So that brings us kind of to the first discussion topic related to this Article 6. And this one feels silly, but it's something we wanted to ask. Most of the uses, except residential and farming uses, do require a zoning clearance. So almost all commercial uses, although farming is commercial, but that confirms that process. We confirm that the use has enough parking and that it is permitted in the structure that it's being proposed in. That the people who are proposing it are following the regulations, if there are supplementary regulations, or if they need to get in touch with police or fire or ACSA, then they are also in touch with those people. So our current ordinance uses the term by right to describe uses that need a zoning clearance. This has led to some confusion with some applicants, thinking they don't need a clearance. The use is permitted by right. I don't need to ask anybody to do something that's by right. So since we're rewriting the ordinance to be clearer, this was a good opportunity to clear up that confusion. And does the commission have any thoughts on the three terms proposed? We have the existing by right term, which is listed in many places and is the term from the Code of Virginia. Or simply just calling them permitted uses, or which the technically accurate term administratively approved, which means that, yes, you can do it. It just, you need to make sure that you are going to the zoning administrator, and that process will approve it based on whether you're following regulations or not. So that was our discussion topic number 3.
Okay, well, I know I spend a lot of time explaining what by right means to people. So I think I'd like a better word. I mean, it certainly refers to code, but go ahead. We'll shake it up and let Lonnie go.
Yeah.
Do it.
So, I mean, I guess my only concern here is that I think there are different standards of review. And so I agree, some other word besides by right might be good, but I like administratively approved as something that indicates that there's a higher level of review than just something.
You
that's
can
pre-
just do it.
You can do
Somebody
it,
still
right?
has to review something.
Yeah, I mean, there are things that I would like to see maybe administratively approved in the rural area, but I still want to make sure that someone is reviewing, saying like, how much water use is there? Like, how much parking is there? Like, what is the, like, that someone's looking at that with a fine tooth comb.
And I think they still would be. I think this is
Oh.
more for the public, for how, right? Isn't that right? How we're describing it in our code. So
Mhm.
Yeah, the term wouldn't change our internal process. It would just be what's on the page so that people don't think that they don't have to get a zoning clearance.
Yeah, I'm just saying that I think that there are some that's pretty minimal in terms of the review, and some where there's more review involved. And so I think having, the idea is to select one of these terms, right? Or, yeah, I think there are cases where several of these terms might apply.
did you want to have something more like administratively reviewed? I mean, what are you trying to get to with a different term?
I'm just saying that I think that there still needs to be sort of gradations of like terms.
Well, I
so that
think the
people know.
county does have that, because they, like, if you want, I mean, you can speak to this better than me, but if you want to have a farmer's market, and there's a different type of, okay, it's a farmer's market and we're going to look at these things, or it's a homestay lodging situation, then we're going to look at, so they don't look at exactly the same things. The different uses have different levels of intensity or different things they screen for. But that's all explain. If you're an applicant and you're applying for this use, the staff will tell you, these are the things we're looking at, right?
Yeah, we do go a little bit more into that in our new Article 3, which talks about applications and the application processes. But the actual things that they're going to be looking at are going to vary based on what kind of application it is. And we don't have enough trees in the county to write all the different things for each single
Yeah.
type of application that we get. We do not call Albemarle County Police Department for something like a home occupation, but we do call it if you have a farmer's market, because we want to make sure that the traffic patterns are going to work. So we do have just very, very different processes for different things. I think that probably one of the things that might help a lot with this is that we are planning on having a lot of things linked in the new ordinance. And one of the things that is very useful is going to be the performance standards sections, which is currently our section 5 in the current ordinance, supplementary regulations. And that really tells you what we're looking for. If there's something beyond, do you have enough parking? Does your lighting meet the regulations? Are you in the right kind of building? do you have like the approved water and sewer? So things like, for campgrounds, you have to discuss your fire plan with the fire rescue department. And that's written into the supplemental regulations right now. So that might be a little bit helpful in that, those individual uses should be linked, within the ordinance. So you'll see that pop up when you're looking at it.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, and I think that pop-up will help. I hate looking things up.
On the semantics of this,
Yes.
by right is definitely sort of like planner jargon, and
Yeah.
I know the goal here is to have something that Earth people can readily understand. So I appreciate the invitation to comments. At first, I like permitted, but it also kind of has its own confusion in a way. Administratively approved may be the most accurate, but it's also 8 syllables and just a mouthful. So I'm kind of leaning toward other and wondered if we might consider something like staff review. It's simple, it's to the point, it says what it is. It's the same meaning as administratively approved, but it's just staff review instead of
It
special use
doesn't really
permit.
indicate that it's permitted.
Um,
It seems like it might,
These are uses that you're
like
you're
confused.
yeah,
currently
so on
permitted
that
to
big
do.
chart,
Like
instead
it
of saying
says
by right, it
review.
would say staff review. Or, staff approved.
on the
Uh,
chart, if they have, on the second sentence here, it says uses are being classified as BRSPAC. It seems like
Yeah.
permitted by right could be PBR and he's permitted.
Check the copyright on that.
But permitted is very straightforward. Like, I think it's.
Yeah.
And if you're saying permitted and it's assuming it's permitted
Yeah.
by right, like that just seems very simple.
Of the three, I like permitted best.
I guess my only issue with that is that there could be certain situations where depending upon the scope or what the person is proposing, it may actually not be permitted. So if they're proposing something that, let's say they're proposing a farm stand that is in excess of our standards for farm stands, well, staff is not going to approve that as presented.
Hmm.
Do you see what I'm saying? So just, so to assume that whatever they propose, if it
Hmm.
falls in the categories, automatically permitted is not necessarily true. It's permitted if staff reviews it and deems it meeting our standards.
I also might add, and I'm sorry to jump in a second time already when some haven't talked, but if we're counterposing a new word for by right with special use permit, having permitted and special use permit already invites kind of confusion with the word permit in both. So I just wanted to throw that out there too.
Fair enough.
We're not helpful.
Administratively approved, I guess, gets at the process.
Right.
And permitted is a little confusing because it's like, it sounds like you can just do it. When I explain by right to regular people, I just say it means that they have the right to develop that land use, but they still have, as long as they follow all the county's rules and requirements and building codes. So, but I always have to add that mouthful of words after what is by right. So I don't know. I'm more leaning towards administratively approved. It explains where it goes. It doesn't go to public hearing. It doesn't,
Could we
yeah.
say staff instead of administratively?
I don't like the word staff because
No.
it doesn't sound like the county. I don't know, county approved? I don't know. I'm really bad at wordsmithing from the dais, but I don't know if we can give some more feedback.
Aren't there certainly uses that are both by right and permitted and don't require administrative approval?
Those are the ones that are, things like living in your house. You can live in a house and you don't need a permit for that.
But what I'm saying is like a residential use is a residential use. So in a residential district,
Mhm.
you have uses that are, when we say by right, are we saying that all of the by right uses are needing some type of application?
Well, sure, you still have to have a building permit. You still have to, you have to,
If you're developing or you're changing the use.
So,
You have listed uses that are allowed in that district.
sure.
Let's say I have this use that it's currently going on and I want to change it to another use, I'm going to have to come to the county and get permission, even though it's by right as an allowed use in that district. And they're going to have to review and see if I followed all the rules as I change it.
Yeah, I think kind of to Ms. King's question, the very, so again, going back to the Article 3, where it talks about zoning clearances, which are referred to as zoning permits in that article. It does say very much at the top, kind of as a alert for everyone, agricultural uses and residential uses are exempt from this requirement. All other uses require a zoning permit. And so that is something that for residents, we don't really get a question about because no one would consider going to ask the county for a permit to live in their house. We do get questions about agriculture because in other places that is something that is required. But those are really the two big carve outs, is just residential and agriculture.
I think that administratively approved, it's shown differently, by the way, on your slide than it is in the staff report. In the staff report, it says administrative approval. And I very much see those two things as different. So like administratively approved implies already approved in the past.
Essentially.
To me,
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's confusing. So I like permitted.
What about like allowable? Or allowable by right? I think what's confusing is that when you say permitted or approved, it sounds like it's gone through process and it's like ready to go.
It's already
And
done.
nobody knows what that is, but what's difficult to catch when you're saying by right, if you don't know, is like, that's your allowable use.
Yeah. I like allowable, and it addresses the thing I said earlier about permit and special use permits.
Oh,
This is the Loudoun County one. I will say that permitted is the most commonly used term in all these charts. Probably partly because it's just, one letter. You can just put that up there.
It just tells you the use is permitted and then staff can tell, broadly everywhere, you still have to get your building permits and all of that stuff and your
Mhm.
whatever.
That's
you
how
have.
it would be translated into the table. That's the kind of
Right.
question. How is it going to be translated in the table?
Allowable would work too,
like
just
that.
A.
We can put a pin in this and then come back if
Sure,
that would be
allowable
helpful.
or permitted. I think you get the gist of what we're after, but we're not adopting code this evening.
No, no.
Thank
yeah.
goodness.
I think.
I like a check mark.
Well, it would still, they would have the check mark, but it would still say like what the column.
Or at the top,
title.
you have the description, but everything with the check mark would be.
Yep.
Because you showed Loudon, I saw an M for minor special exception, and now I'm really curious what the
Oh,
heck that is.
let's leave Loudon. Let's leave Loudon out.
Leave Loudon to Loudon, yeah.
Yes, they have enough issues. All right, moving on.
So discussion topic number 4, this is a multi-slide kind of discussion. What we have here is the meat of the changes to this article, the consolidation of use categories. So our goal in phase 2 is a more clear, more straightforward ordinance. But as it currently stands, our regulations lists of uses is repetitive. It's got some outdated uses in there still. And some of them are just confusing or very narrow unnecessarily. So since we are a Dillon state rule, if a list is not shown in the list of permitted uses, then the use is not permitted. There's some flexibility for this because we do have provisions where the zoning administrator can make an interpretation that a use is so similar to a use that is permitted, that is listed, that it is essentially the same use. An example of that would be a currently listed use is musical instrument stores. The zoning administrator could determine that an art supply store is similar enough to a musical instrument store that they're basically the same thing and that they have exactly the same impacts.
So weird.
So that ends up being another by right use, even though the use of art supply store is not actually listed in the ordinance anywhere. This is just an extra step. In functionality, it means nothing, but it is annoying, it is frustrating for applicants, and it can be confusing.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but in that example, then that would, the art supply store, the musical instrument store would just be retail sales.
Yes, and we are just, the whole team is just running ahead. Now I understand what it was like to be one of my teachers, asking questions before we get to the actual sections of that book. Yes, so that would just allow exactly the same thing. And also we are just saying it's a more common sense thing. It allows for future industry and technological changes to continue to evolve without doing a zoning text amendment again. So the actual examples that we have, here's your example. Retail sales and service and general commercial would be all consolidated from all of those commercial retail is everything that we have listed for sale that has basically the same impact. Goes into general retail sales and service and general commercial. I did want to bring the commission's attention to a couple of the consolidated categories that just might be a little confusing, might need a little more explanations. The first one I do have here is the site-intensive commercial. These are mostly uses that are permitted currently under highway commercial. And that is where they would continue to be permitted, is it's really auto-focused. It's things that use up a lot of land, that are uses that require maybe trucks to be delivered. They require large parking lots. Or it just it's a sale of a large thing. So for example, modular building sales, manufactured home and trailer sales, feed and seed stores. These are things that are large. They take up a lot of space. And so currently we allow them in highway commercial district, and that would be where they would be listed. Making it simpler, site intensive commercial, we would have a definition of that, and that supplementary regulations would limit that to the kinds of uses that we are currently permitting. Not really any changes there. So
So could you go back one slide?
do you want me to go forward one slide
No,
perhaps?
back one slide.
Back is here.
No. Oh,
16?
oh, maybe it was forward. Okay, so you were-
Yeah, I
okay.
skipped to get to the retail.
Oh, okay.
Can I just call out how charming it is to have milk dispensaries as its own in the past?
Um,
You missed the days of the automobile laundry.
So I think both with this slide and with the previous slide, one of the things that I do have a minor issue with here is that I don't like the lumping of retail nurseries and greenhouses, and then in the other slide you had feed stores. I mean, both of those seem like rural uses that that support agriculture, that I would hate to see lumped in with other retail things that may not make sense as a rural use.
So those are currently not permitted in the rural area.
Right. I think that's a discussion that we should have.
That can definitely be something we could look at in phase 3. I will make a note of that. And also I kind of rushed forward past it a little bit because I was trying to get to this slide. But we would have things that we can still pull out. So for example, motor vehicle sales and service is treated very differently in different districts. So that would be something that we would keep out, even though it is a site intensive commercial use. And that's something that I think might be a little bit different from your staff report than what's on the screen, because we had that discussion since we submitted the staff report. So
Okay. And
we're still
yeah, are we
working.
going to go through each of these lumpings individually, or should we just make comments?
So I just have a couple I wanted to bring up, and let me get,
One on the previous slide, if we're skipping ahead already. Yeah, that one.
Mhm.
I just was thinking, at least in my mind, the term hospitality often is kind of the restaurant industry as much as lodging. And if we're talking about lodging, I wonder if we just use lodging instead of hospitality.
I agree.
Yeah.
Hospitality, I think of different.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Are you wanting to take comments on the, as it was called, lumpings now, or are you saying you
Yeah.
need to tell us a couple more things on this topic?
no, we can absolutely whatever slide we have, I'm just making notes as we go along, so.
Okay, we can, I know we've been going back and forth a bit, but can we go back to campground
Mhm.
on the bottom? So I had a little bit of heartburn with day camp versus boarding camp because they definitely have different impacts. If the impact of a whole lot of kids at a camp up until 5 o'clock is not the same as kids 24 hours a day. So I love kids, but it would definitely cause me to entertain different considerations for an application or what we were zoning something, depending on where it was located, if it was a boarding camp versus just a daytime thing.
And the infrastructure for those camps
Yeah.
is really different than what
Yeah.
it could be for a campground.
Well, and yeah, I mean, I think too, there are different kinds of campgrounds as well.
Yes.
And there are concerns, we've seen several issues with existing campgrounds with flooding and we've had to have fire and rescue come out and
Yeah, we've had
rescue-
issues where when people are sleeping overnight and it's in a zone that would subject to be flooded, that we would not want that to be an overnight boarding camp. So I don't know that we will. Does that make sense? Or would you have different standards for review for one versus the other, even though they're both campground?
So I think we would have some differentiation within the performance standards for those different, different aspects of that. And also the reason these are lumped is because most of the day camps that we have now do overnight now. That's just something that has become standard practice, at all these places. So, that, and then also that the day camp and the boarding camp is allowed by right only in the rural area, and they're both allowed by right, or sorry, by special use permit, I apologize. By special use permit in the rural area, they are not differentiated at all. And the uses are similar enough that a lot of times a campground that starts out as a day camp will evolve into a boarding camp. Or a boarding camp will have a lot of daytime activities, particularly in the off season. They will do camps for schools and for churches. I
just
do
did
think
see-
that that's something we can address in supplementary regulations, and also it is a special use permit. So all of these things are individual uses. They're individually appearing before the commission and the board for their public hearings. And I think that that would be a great time to discuss those and make sure that we're looking out for all the different aspects of these things.
So quick question. I just want to make sure I'm tracking in terms of like process. So we would still be able to tag some of these things as special use permit in various instances. Like I'm trying to think of worst case scenario. So like if Virginia legalizes, cannabis stores, that is retail, but I could see people saying, I don't want that by me, right? So like, is there safety nets that we can still employ by lumping all this together? To say, raise their hand and say, hey, we need to talk about that.
Yeah, if there's a use that we need to pull out, I think that appears, that becomes something that we become worried about. I think that is the point at which we would have to do a zoning text amendment, because it's become evident that this use is something that should not be lumped into all these other things.
Also make sure we don't get too broad, because I could see under retail, for example, it feels like that should be just dissected a little bit more. The cannabis shop or a lingerie shop, all that stuff is retail, but members in the community might say, hey, that's good, but not right here, right? And so I'm just afraid that if we don't think critically about some of these uses, it could open up a can of worms later. So just food for thought, but I think it can be too sweeping. And so finding that delicate balance. So
Yeah, I mean, there's a big difference between, like, for example, the Girl Scout camp in Sugar Hollow and Misty Mountain, which has, RVs and stuff there. I mean, so like, that's a pretty big difference. And, for as a campground, and one I think should have a much higher level of review.
Have you had experience? I haven't, with just seeing different levels of campground, like, because there are also RV resorts that are
Oh, yes.
like huge and have all these facilities and pools and all this really different impact from, like you said, like a Girl Scout camp. Well, I shouldn't use Girl Scouts because they can be very big, but some smaller scale thing with some kids in tents kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that is really where the special use permit process is really designed for that because it is a special circumstance.
Right.
It's a circumstance where we don't see these every day. We don't see like one of these come in every 2 weeks. And so because of that, it does have a higher level of scrutiny. And that is exactly what the special use permit process is for. That is why we have all of the different processes from the pre-application meeting, having the mandatory and exploratory on that. And then we go into all the reviews and then we do have the public hearings. So if there is a special use permit that comes in and staff says, you know, this doesn't look like it's a really big deal, but it is required to have a special use permit, then it does receive the same level of review, but it won't have as many complications. So that's really where the flexibility of that process is more in use and really what we're looking for that kind of use.
And to add to that, we could refine the definition, that's right now there are 2 definitions that we have for day camp and boarding camp. So if it gets refined into campground, maybe it doesn't include the RV camping or the resort camp. I don't know.
Yeah, like
but
I
it's-
just camped at a campground where they had, in a state park, and they had little tent sites and they had sites for small RVs, and they all blended in very well. So it wasn't, but then I've also seen ones where it's just, almost feels like a hotel complex, so I almost wonder if I was thinking about this when we eventually get to the rural area plan, that sort of start to tease out these different types of levels of, there's camping and then there's camping,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them, they add in this entertainment level of facilities, and the infrastructure can be pretty significant for some of them.
I think what I hear you saying, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, is that if we have all of these current uses and right now they're all allowed, let's just say retail, for example. Right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 35 different retail categories. And they're all by right currently, because we haven't changed the term, in these districts. They're all by right in these districts. So we're just saying there's no need to have 37 of them.
Right.
It's all the same thing. And they're all by right in these districts. So they all still require review and permitting and all the things. It's just, we don't need to call them 37 things when they're all one thing.
That's right. Yeah.
It doesn't matter what we term it as, it falls in that category and it still gets reviewed. You're not giving permission to do something different by lumping them in one category.
I guess, but if I was going to put RV, like let's take campground, right? If I was going to make that by right, then I would want to know, was I making by right a major RV resort or?
Without a permit.
So right now,
Yeah,
every kind of camp right now requires a special use permit.
Yeah, let me just
Okay,
clarify.
all right.
This is not a list of by right uses.
Okay.
This is all of the uses.
Just names of things.
Yes, this is just names
Okay.
of all the different uses. And there are some uses that are by right in some districts and require special use permits in different districts.
Right.
Right.
So this
The
is,
ones that
okay.
you're considering consolidating are the ones where it's uniform.
yes,
Correct.
so
That's,
And then and also then deleting some things like dance halls and pool halls.
that would.
Those are like terms from when was there last a dance hall? 1952? Huh?
the VFW facility.
Oh, is that a dance hall or a social club? I don't know.
We need a pool hall and milk dispensary. That's my.
I mean,
next
I'm not
business.
against the pool and dancing. I'm just saying that it's just a funny old fashioned term for something that doesn't really come to us.
That's actually a great segue onto slide 17.
Awesome.
Which at the top of that slide, you see amusement centers, bowling alleys, pool halls, and dance halls, which are just commercial, they're indoor commercial recreation.
Right.
So that's really, that would be the consolidation there.
Yep.
And now most of the commercial indoor recreation that we've seen recently has been for axe throwing.
I feel like a batting cage would be indoor commercial recreation.
It would be indoor commercial or it would be indoor athletic. Batting cage would probably be indoor athletic. More on the sports
Batting
side.
cage.
The only one that I would have any comment on this particular list is the Agricultural Historical Museum, just to make sure that the events part doesn't get lost in there, just because, you know, when you have this kind of center, they may sometimes have events. And I know we've sometimes had some struggles with certain neighbors that events are allowed. in certain-
Yeah, our discussion on that is that the events are accessory.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
they're listed as accessory uses. You can't have a historical center festival without a historical center. So that those are just, the festival is an accessory use to the historical museum.
And when, just quick question, so when you would review those, would you get into that level of detail of how many events per year or that kind of thing?
So this specifically is for Monticello.
Okay.
This exact list of the uses right there. So we do not require individual zoning clearances for Monticello for their individual events.
Sure.
But if a new historical center were to open up, we would probably have limits on the number of attendants, unless it was in the Monticello Historic District, which
Gotcha.
is where this is primarily located.
Okay.
And it would be just the same as a normal special use permit for an agricultural museum, and they can have agricultural festivals as well. So
Thank you.
So 2 items here that I want to call out. First, I would strongly recommend that we pull golf out of outdoor athletic facilities. Because the water usage for golf is dramatically higher than those other ones. You know, you can look, I mean, you're talking millions of gallons for golf courses, very high, you know, use of fertilizer. The other consequence for that too, in a rural area is golf courses bizarrely automatically get land use, which is a strange thing, in Virginia code. So I would strongly recommend that we yank golf out of there and treat it separately, because it is a highly intensive use that deserves stronger review. The other question I have here is, I'm really glad, first, I'm really glad to see agricultural processing plants. I think that's a great addition. I hope somehow we can move some of the things that are currently in light industrial over to agricultural processing plants. I have questions about what all that includes, because it seems like that list under their commercial fruit or agricultural produce packing plants is not complete. There could be some other things that we could talk about, or other categories of agricultural processing that we may want to consider. For example, I wonder about like Yancey Mills. Technically, that's agricultural processing, right? I mean, it's processing of timber, agricultural processing. Would that be in that category?
So I do think that that would be something we would want to talk about in phase 3. Right now, we are really focusing on just the translation to make it simpler and clearer, and not really a use change. So right now, what we would do is have a definition of agricultural processing plants and define that as commercial fruit or agricultural produce packing plants. And the way that we've set this up, it makes it easier to have that conversation
Okay.
when we're in phase 3, because then we can say, okay, this is meeting the goal of having agricultural processing and supporting our farms. What else can we do that falls into this category that we can expand this definition to include those things without having a huge impact? Sawmills are a completely separate use, and they are pulled out as a separate use. So I don't really see that changing, just because of the nature of the noise impact of that. But more other agricultural processing. I know that we've had some conversations about like meat processing and egg and other kind of produce processing. That is something that there has been interest in. So that would definitely be a great thing that we should talk about.
So,
Okay. But but you're saying for the future, for next time.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right now, we're just trying to say, do we like this simplification scheme?
Yes.
And I think generally we do.
Yeah, we do.
I would like to just point out that, again, just because golf is an outdoor athletic use doesn't mean it can't have scrutiny. This doesn't have anything to do with the scrutiny that we give the application.
Yeah.
It only has to do with consolidating the types of uses.
But along with that, you want the considerations to be relatively constant, because otherwise you're going to end up with a long list of special exceptions. It's a long list of conditions that are going to have to always come with that. So if the special condition, with a golf course, the list of special conditions is going to be way higher than if someone just wants to build a tennis court. And so I think that's the thing I would consider is like, are they two things you can compare apples to apples?
But we're not comparing apples to apples. We're consolidating the uses so that the chart is easier to read. It doesn't have anything to do with the scrutiny.
But
Right.
I don't-
Let's let staff answer,
Oh, sure,
respond to
sorry.
that.
Yeah, so all of this list of uses, we part of the amount of time that we spent on this was not necessarily to make it as, the best, list that if a consultant came in, they would say, this is the list you should have. Because we are not trying to change the uses right now. So that is really, swim, golf, tennis, or similar athletic facilities, that's what's in the ordinance right now, or similar athletic facilities. Those are listed as a special use permit use for the rural area. So right now, we're not adding any additional regulatory steps. Right now, we're just listing it in a simpler way that doesn't require as many zoning administrator interpretations.
Not as many mental gymnastics to try to fit something into
So-
some word,
Thank you.
weird
Yeah.
2-word definition.
So
Corey?
might I suggest small scale athletic facilities and large scale athletic facilities? For example, a ski resort technically is an outdoor athletic facility. I think its level of review is very different. So I would suggest you split that in a small scale and large scale, then we can at least compare apples to apples.
If I could.
Well, let her,
Crystal
let
ball?
her
Sorry, Sure,
respond.
sure.
Well, I was just going to say, when we get to the major minor question, I think that that would definitely be something that, again, we're kind of teeing up this to get towards more of an ordinance that we want. And so we're laying down the foundation right now. And I think that we can definitely use that using the naming scheme that we have on page 17, I think, of the presentation. Nope, I'm on page 17. Never mind. No idea what slide it's on, but
get there.
it will be down in a couple more slides.
Okay, Corey was trying to get a word in.
Just a confirming question. I've already asked it once, but I just want to make sure because in the course of this last 30 minutes, it's been a ping pong ball. If the simple question is, do we agree with simplification like this? I think the answer is a unanimous yes. That doesn't require a 30-minute discussion. My question was, with that yes, like the golf, are we today saying, hey, you need to be looking at this as a special use permit or something like that? Because in general, yes, golf fits in that category. It's a no-brainer. But Commissioner, not Moore, Murray
That
is
guy.
saying, Commissioner Murray is saying, hey, is there a flag that should be waved? And so what part are we talking about tonight? Because I think in general, yes, it should be simplified, but it's a point of this discussion to wave a flag, like I said, around a cannabis store under retail or golf under outdoor activities. Like what are you trying to, we want to help you. And I'm kind of struggling a little bit.
Sure. So the primary goal is just, do you think that these names are wrong? That's really just, are these consolidations wrong or are they good to go? If there is something to mention,
I-
this is
Yeah, and I think that was the feedback that Mr. Murray was giving you is that, outdoor athletic facilities, he would like to see major and I think I would say minor, other, or this outdoor athletic facilities and major outdoor athletic facilities.
Yeah, it sounds like staff's asking you the latter of the conditions you phrased, Mr. Claiborne. So you guys are really looking for feedback on these individual groupings that you've put together here. And so that is, I think, that is correct.
Yeah, I think that the feedback is, should these be grouped or not?
And I
Not,
think that
not necessarily breaking apart the uses that are currently
Okay.
existing in the ordinance.
Right, like the conversation we just had about campgrounds, overnight boarding and day camps.
Yes.
And you convinced me after I thought, because I remembered that you're exactly right. A lot of those applications then said, oh, by the way, but we're going to have these overnight weekends, we're going to have these, you know, so they ended up being the same.
So we generally agree, I think that grouping should occur.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and the
Definitely
only,
get back to the basics.
and the
Yes,
only
with
time.
major and minor regarding the outdoor athletic facilities as some kind of, later on in the definition.
Yeah, well,
All
there,
right.
there may be some time in the future where there are certain types of outdoor athletic facilities that we want to allow by right or permitted.
Mhm.
Yes, exactly.
And some that require special use
Exactly.
permit, but right now it's all special use permit, and so
Mhm.
we can just group them as we see fit and amend in the future.
Yes, we're not writing zoning code right now.
Right.
Mr.
right.
Barnes was trying to get in a word in, nope, he's
No, I
gave up.
think you guys just got to the end of the discussion.
Okay, right. Shoot. All right, should we move on?
Mhm.
Yes, I don't, again, these are not, there's no change here as far as what's permitted, what's not. These are all uses that are lumped together as far as their permissions currently in the ordinance. So I just wanted to bring them to your attention, just so that you're aware of what's happening and the reasoning behind it. I think light industrial, research and development, those are pretty straightforward. The residential facility term is our best guess at what the Code of Virginia wants, because they use 3 different terms to define all of these different types of things in different areas, in different sections of the Code of Virginia. So this residential facility was the best one that we could come up with. And then heavy manufacturing and processing are all things that are specifically by special use permit in the heavy industrial districts as well. So these ones, again, are all aligned as far as their current permissions, and it's really just, why are they all aligned? What is different about these ones? Well, it's heavy manufacturing, it's heavy processing. It involves chemicals and outputs that we might not want next to a commercial shopping center. And definitely not next to a residential shopping center. And it requires additional oversight by the health department and probably DEQ. So that is the grouping there. And then I will go ahead and
Is
get.
that the
to-
one that Sawmills falls under, but it's not listed? I would think it would be.
No, sawmills is its own separate use because it has different permissions because of the rural area is special. So
That's fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, I think full support of pulling any agricultural uses out of light industrial.
and then the
You- A question really quickly about the last, I'm sorry, one more slide back. I just need to understand for me, not that there's something wrong with it. There's one more back, I'm sorry, about the schools.
Mhm.
So is it not, are we saying private schools, these types of private schools? So none of this
Not
has to do
public.
with any public school type?
correct, public schools are public uses. They're permitted in all districts regardless.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify.
Mhm.
Thank you.
So the next topic that we had was home occupations. This is a little bit of a change. There is some change in regulation in this topic. But staff's argument here is that it is actually very, very minor change, and it is actually not giving any additional permissions. It's requiring what we already do administratively. So we have currently 4 named types of home occupations in the ordinance. Class A and Class B are permitted in residential districts, and then major and minor are permitted in the rural area. Our recommendation is that we consolidate these into major home occupations and minor home occupations. And what we have here, Class B versus major home occupations, is what is the same, which is a very long list on the left. And then the things that are different, which are generally not described in Class B, but very detailed in major. Or there is a minor change between the two. For example, the prohibited uses. The permitting for Class B and major would remain the way it is now. So we would have a major home occupation, that would be a listed use, and it would be by special use permit in residential districts, the same way that Class B is by special use permit in residential districts today. So that isn't really any change. We're just calling it the same. the regulations that we have for major that are described in that section in the ordinance, we do by administrative practice apply those for Class B, but because it is by special use permit, that can be waived and changed, and it can be adjusted during the special use permit process. So a lot of these things are the same. The vehicle trips, that's the recommended number of vehicle trips. We say when you bring a Class B home occupation, we say you should have no more than 10 vehicle trips per day, 30 per week. That's what we recommend as a condition of approval. And then the board can adjust that during that process. Then Class A and minor are even closer in actual regulations. They're really no difference except for the waivers and modifications that are available, which is there's none listed in the residential district and it is listed in the rural area district. So this would be the discussion topic that I would appreciate feedback on, due to it is actually a change. It's a simplification. It's not a very big change. And it is effectively the same that it is now. It's just on paper, a different name.
Are you saying that currently home occupations is just the category and then you want to put it into major versus minor?
No, right now the home occupations are major, minor, Class A, or Class B.
Okay.
And so this would just say Class A, the same regulations apply for all minor. And then all home occupations that are major home occupations, here's the regulations for that.
Okay.
So,
Can you go back to the other chart for just a second?
sure. Do you want A or
This one.
this one?
Traffic is the one that stood out to me as
Mhm.
just a question mark. So if we're going from calling it Class A to calling it minor, are you guys gonna consider that minor has no standard, but A did?
What we apply, so we have kind of a cheat sheet chart in the office that we apply for these applications, and we tell people that you really shouldn't be having traffic if you have Class A. And you are not allowed to have any traffic under minor. So this would be that would be maybe a differentiation between the two.
So what you're saying is you're not actually taking two separate minor classifications, a and a minor, and combining them in writing. It's just the way that you apply it, or?
No, it would be combining them.
Okay.
But they would have different performance standards, right?
So, I mean, I just feel like in this particular example, in the other example, you stated that the major definition was usually more detailed than Class B.
Mm-hmm.
But in this example, specifically on traffic, I'm seeing that the description is more detailed on Class A than it is on minor.
It is. This would be a change where we would allow the normal, the way that we interpret this is 7 cars per week, seven trips. And, oh, sorry, we currently say a minor cannot have any traffic in the rural area. Our recommendation would be to say a minor can have 7 vehicle trips per week. And the reason that we make that recommendation is because a major home occupation in the rural area is by right. So it's really not that big of a deal to allow 7 vehicle trips per week at a minor home occupation in the rural area. We're not creating a use that isn't allowed by right already. It's just sliding it over one.
You have a
Yeah, go
question?
ahead, Nathan.
And I'm looking at this, could you actually go to Class B/major real quick?
Mhm.
Yeah, so in both of these cases, are we, where Class B and major or Class A and minor do differ, what would be the guidance in terms of which of the two things we adopt? Would we go with the more permissive one or the more restrictive one? Because in both of these cases, if we went with the more restrictive, that is the major, minor, in some of these, we're making it so people can't take piano lessons at somebody's house.
Sure. So what we would have here would be major home occupations are allowed customers, clients, and students. And the reason that we have that is because it's not addressed under Class B, that means the way that we've applied that administratively is that there is not a limit. So if you have a Class B, then there is no limit on the customers, clients, and students.
Mhm.
And Class B, the Class B/major is a little bit different because it would still be by special use permit in the residential districts. So that's why there are not as many standards for Class B listed. And the major would apply for Class B as the standard conditions. Really, the focus here is on the minor Class A combination because Class B is still going to be by special use permit, even though we're now calling it major in the residential districts.
Right now, if somebody was teaching a piano lessons in their
Mhm.
home, would they have to get a special use permit to see students at their home?
No, because they are allowed that under Class A. They just have a limited number of students they're allowed to have.
The distinction for Class A and Class B, mainly B, is use of an accessory structure and having employees actually come to your house. That's the intensification of a Class B, usually in that description,
Sure.
the definition, so.
Okay. Well, even with the minor, with Class A, either way, if we, I'm just trying to grok this a little bit then, like if we're making minor the new default, which literally says no students, how does that continue to enable that kind of use of somebody's home?
No, so minor wouldn't be the default. This would be a combination, and I'm regretting that I don't have the proposed table for you here.
Okay.
But this would be allowing a small number of customers, clients, and students, the way that we do under Class A. And the justification for that is because we do allow customers, clients, and students under currently major home occupations. So we're easing up a little bit in some places and tightening up a little bit in some other places. Where, for example, under the hours of operation,
Mhm.
we would have that listed under both sides.
Sure,
Just because it's
sure.
not addressed right now, that would be the recommended condition of approval for all special use permits for a major home occupation in the residential district.
I mean, overall, I definitely agree to merge Class B and major and also Class A and minor, but I just, in some of those places where the two are different, I'm curious to see the sort of final language put together.
I think that would help. I think this
Yeah,
is hard.
We're there, yeah.
It's hard to get your head around in this format. But I think we generally agree with the direction you're trying to head, if that helps.
Great.
Can you explain the part one more time about having an employee? I don't see that on this list, so I just was
In the
curious.
definition of the two different uses, so.
And you're talking about in the residential area specifically or
In
the-
either,
Yeah,
in either, it's only under major or Class B.
Okay.
So minor, you don't have any employees coming to your house. It's
Mhm.
just you doing your thing, whether you're teaching piano or painting portraits or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Mhm.
but as she said, right now, in the rural area as a minor, you can't teach somebody piano because you can't have that traffic coming. We want to make, because we allow that in the development area, you then allow it in the rural area. That's the kind of parity that we're trying to
Mhm.
match up here.
Yeah,
between-
and I mean, I think a lot of us support that, if not all of us, because there are things going on in the rural area. And in some ways, this would just be acknowledging the ability to have a viable small business that's really not impacting anyone.
Mhm.
I like the idea of streamlining it and trust that you all know the nuance between how these work, that you'll combine them as needed.
Okay, great. All right, so discussion topic 5, we're at 5 out of 7, so we're getting there. Nope. There we go. This is really just a naming convention. This isn't really a discussion topic. We currently have in the ordinance only listed temporary events sponsored by local nonprofit organizations allowed in the rural area by special use permit. This proposal is that we add an additional 2 listed uses, minor temporary events and major temporary events, because by administrative practice, we do allow minor and major temporary events. Minor temporary events are allowed in all districts with a zoning clearance. This is things like a bake sale or a fun fair at your church, or a one-day flea market. Or in the rural area, we have a lot of 5Ks, we have a lot of bike races. Those are all minor temporary events. And that comes from the regulations about temporary events sponsored by local nonprofits, which is a backwards way of falling into that, which that definition says this does not mean religious assembly use bazaars, yard sales, bake sales, car washes, and picnics. So we're saying, okay, well, if that doesn't mean that, this is what that does mean. And then large temporary events, which we are suggesting be called major temporary events, we do allow them by zoning clearance in commercial districts right now. So for example, the biggest one I think everybody knows is the circus in the Fashion Square Mall parking lot. That is one that we have permitted with the zoning clearance regularly. We do require, again, individual approvals from police, from fire, from water, to make sure that that is meeting all the regulations and safety and health and welfare that we need. But that is a major temporary event. It's not listed in the ordinance. This is administrative practice. So this is just putting words on the page to what we are already doing as implied accessory uses of these parcels.
So where would a wedding, for example, fall in here?
Weddings are called out very explicitly, and it would not.
Okay.
Yeah. We are very careful in all of our definitions to not include those. So,
Okay, so mostly just verbiage here.
yes.
Okay, all right.
And then this kind of gets to what I was mentioning a little bit earlier with the major minor use distinction. What we're setting up here is to have uses that are substantially similar, but have different levels of impact to be called major versus minor, but the same thing. And this sets us up to say in the future, if there is a use that we have pulled out and said, you know, this is the same, this is technically under this large use that requires a special use permit, but really, if we define this use, it's so minor, we should allow it by right in the rural area, even though the large version of this use needs a special use permit.
Sure.
We're setting ourselves up to do that, to have this format, to have this template for other uses. And the ones that are in the ordinance right now that would be, given this naming convention, would be a automobile and truck repair shop versus a body shop, minor motor vehicle repair, major motor vehicle repair. And this is especially appropriate because a body shop in the way that we used to think of it with hammers is not really something that happens a lot right now. More they ship in a new piece and then they bolt it to the car and then ship the car out to another country, the broken piece. So same thing with farm worker housing. We have that listed Class A and Class B. And then data centers are regulated by their size in different locations. And this would just be calling them major data centers versus a minor data center. And this wouldn't change where they're permitted. It wouldn't change any of the processes to get these things. It's just setting ourselves up for a future, easier lineup of uses that we can differentiate if we need to.
A quick question on that. I'm not an expert in this space, but I'm just curious, how did you come to 40,000 square feet for data centers? And is that the right metric? Is square feet the right metric for the sake of this conversation, opposed to energy use? I don't know enough about it, but it just struck me as odd. Is there a correlation with physical size and what you're trying to govern here?
I'm going to phone a friend, and call in, Mr. Bill Fritz, who wrote that ordinance.
Bill Fritz at the Community Development Office. It's a great question, and what we did is we looked around at various building sizes and data center sizes, and we came up with 40,000 square feet. It's about the size of a grocery store, and we had a lot of buildings of that size, and felt that based on the research we did, that the impacts of a data center at 40,000 square feet were minimal in terms of its impact, so they could be permitted by right. There's a lot of research done into it.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I'm not an expert in that space. Thank
No,
you.
good question.
But
Thanks for
the-
asking.
The answer is yes, it's an arbitrary number, but there was some backing behind it.
It'd be about the size of the Barracks Kruger, about half the size of the Wright Hill Kruger.
I'm sorry?
Just about the size of the Barracks Road Kruger and about half the size of the Wright Hill Kruger.
Yeah, it's obviously there are some like Wegmans is much larger
Right.
and some are other, and you need to focus on the size of the actual grocery store, not the center that it's in.
Right,
So,
right, right,
yeah,
right.
but it's a rough number, but
Yeah.
that's the number we use just when somebody says, well, what's 40,000
Yeah.
square feet? That's the rough number.
Yep.
And the genesis of my question was more around, is even square feet the right metric to use when we talk about negative impacts?
Or is it energy generation?
Right,
and
yeah, is that the right
turbine?
metric? So,
The reason we didn't use energy impacts was because that number keeps changing based
Got
on
it.
the technology.
got it. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Right, so I think we're supportive of that.
Great. This is, the use community centers and clubs and lodges. This is a listing that is different. That's kind of an example of the kind of thing that we're doing here. Where if you're at all familiar with our, commercial use districts, all of our commercial use districts list by special use permit, all of the uses permitted by right or by special use permit in R15 districts. So that means that if it's listed in R15 at all, it is by special use permit in all of our commercial districts. That's not necessarily reflected in the lists right now. So we have some uses that are listed by special use permit in commercial districts because they're in R15, but they're not listed, or there are some that are similar that are not listed that really should be, for example, community centers. If we're looking at this right now, the squares on the left show what is currently in the ordinance. Clubs and lodges are not shown by special use permit in residential districts, but they are shown in the DCD district, downtown Crozet district, by special use permit. And community centers are by special use permit in residential districts, but they're not in DCD. This brings that all into line because these are all essentially the same use. It just depends on whether you have a private membership or whether you are open to the general community or whether you're a nonprofit. And that's really the difference in definition and not in impact. So our recommendation is because the impacts are the same, the uses are the same, and it aligns with the lists that is actually listed by special use permit. We just make it by special use permit in all of the districts. And then our discussion topic 6, outdoor performance areas. This is again a actual change, although I don't really think it's going to impact any of our applicants. Currently, we have 3 uses that are similar: outdoor amphitheater, outdoor drama theater, and outdoor performance area.
Mhm.
They're listed differently in different districts. The only one that is listed in the rural area is outdoor drama theater. It was approved very specifically for one individual applicant who had a very particular idea of a performance that they wanted to put on. It was approved and never built. And the proposal is that all 3 of these are consolidated under the use outdoor performance area and then removed from the rural area district, because we know that there are concerns in the rural area district with things like outdoor concerts and outdoor amplified music can be disruptive to the neighbors. And so pending future work on the rural area plan, which will look at how are we going to differentiate which uses we are thinking are going to be appropriate entertainment uses for the rural area. We need to have that discussion. We need to do that research. Since we have only had one application for an outdoor drama theater in the history of this use, I don't think that removing it from that ordinance is really going to impact a lot of people. And so that is our recommendation until we get the work for the rural area plan. And then maybe find some way to maybe do a major minor on that, maybe list it out as a specific type of use, maybe have supplemental regulations for a special use permit. But we will see what we're doing in that at that time.
Okay, so it's just, again, the slide is just about consolidating. We're not zoning here.
It is technically removing a use from the rural area. But again, I don't think that this is a very in-demand use. And
Made your
up there,
case for that,
yeah.
yes.
yes,
Well, at first I flagged this one. I was like, I don't really want to take away any possibility on this where it might be
Roving
useful.
thespians. you
But
might
well,
wanna,
I mean, functionally though, let's be real, the Albemarle County, if you want to do an outdoor drama production or an outdoor concert, you make some wine or you let people pick some apples and then you have all the events you want, you know? So that seems to be the business plan that we've got around here.
Yeah, are you trying to say like, why wouldn't we let other people also do it?
Without agritourism?
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, but again, the actual functional need has been pretty minimal.
yeah, but I mean, it could still be allowed. They would need to apply or?
no, so this would remove it for the time being. And then I think that under the rural area plan, we are going to be looking at uses that are outdoor entertainment uses, outdoor athletic uses, just reevaluating what we're going to be doing with the rural area. And so right now, we just have this one very particular individual thing that only one person has ever applied for in 40 years. And we should think about this. This is a topic we should think about. Do we want to allow this kind of use in the rural area? And my recommendation is that we should think about it, but not at this point in time. We're just simplifying it right now, taking that use out. If in the next 6 months, we get 5 applications for an outdoor drama theater, obviously we will not adopt that. But I'm not anticipating that to happen.
I do have a question. So maybe this is clarified in the definitions as you all flush it out.
Mhm.
But I just want to make sure I understand like the intent behind this. So let's say Blenheim Winery, Dave Matthews wants to have a concert at his own winery. Would you not be able to do that under this? See, Mr. Fritz is shaking his head, but
No, an outdoor drama theater is only historical
no,
drama.
I'm sorry. Not the drama. I'm assuming that we're all going to the proposed outdoor performance area, so that lumps in everything.
So the outdoor performance area would not be permitted in the rural area at this time.
And so again, if Dave Matthews want to have a concert at his own winery, the answer would be no. Under this.
So
Does he have a special use?
his
Already
wine-
has a special use that might allow something or?
so his winery actually doesn't have the events that most wineries do. He's declined seeking out that.
This hypothetical, I
particular-
mean, if
yeah.
we replace Dave Matthews with, Mr. Fritz and his band, right? Like anybody, I'm just,
Sure.
just in general, I just want to make sure I'm tracking with the intention of the language here. Like, would that be, if it's being struck from the rural area, would that now say we can't do that? Or at Carter's Mountain or anything like that? I'm just trying
It's
to,
a little tricky because because wineries, breweries, et cetera, they have their own regulation in state code pertaining to events. So
So this would not
they're in
apply.
their own bucket. Yes,
Okay.
they're in
So
their
this
own
wouldn't
bucket.
apply. That's
But
what
if
I-
I, but
that's
if
what-
I owned 20 acres and I wanted to have Fritz's band come and play on my 20 acres, I can do that. I just can't build a performance area.
No, you cannot do that now, and you would not be able to do that under this.
Sorry, Bill. Not happening.
So the outdoor drama theater is very, very, very restrictive. It has to be solely for a historical event that took place within Albemarle County. So that's how narrow it is. So taking it out as just removing it from the ordinance. The reason I was shaking my head is removing the outdoor drama theater has zero impact on the question you have. That's a completely separate question.
Yeah.
Not to interrupt, I wasn't even talking about the drama theater. I'm saying, I'm assuming that everything, we're just talking about outdoor performance area under proposed. Let's say that's the legislative language that moves forward, which lumps everything together. And I see this red box to the right that says in the rural areas, eh. So my question was pertaining to any kind of outdoor performance, Mr. Fritz's band or whatever, can that not happen anymore under this proposal?
It can't happen now.
Right.
And it can't happen anymore. So it can't happen now. So we're not removing it at all.
Okay, so that answers that
She's
question.
saying that when we get to the rural area plan,
Yeah.
we have a discussion about what's appropriate in the rural area or which
And-
parts of the rural area, then that could theoretically be added.
And answered that part of the question. But my original question was around the winery, and it sounds like that's a whole separate ball game
Yes.
where they could do that.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's a whole set
Gotcha.
of regulations around events and
Gotcha.
all of that. And outdoor amplified music is another part of our code. Anyway,
Yeah. Now, Corey, if you want to propose a monthly performance of reenacting the Second Earl of Albemarle starring Bill Fritz, that would fall under this.
okay, I think we could move on.
Okay, great. So this is again, the cultural amenities conversation is really, again, just naming convention. It's very, very similar to what we had in the list of uses where you have the art supply store. It's essentially the same thing as the musical instrument store. And this just uses a broader definition for what we already permit, which is we allow cultural arts centers in the downtown Crozet district. We allow libraries and museums in all of our commercial districts and our industrial districts. And then under this new definition, we might encourage people to come up with some new ideas that we would currently approve under libraries and museums that they might not have thought of. But cultural amenities is a broader feeling category, even if it's not actually a broader category in the ordinance than what's there right now.
Sounds broader because it's called amenities. It seems like it
Amenities.
could be expanded to encompass a wide variety of things. And I'm obviously looking at your staff report, which has a lot more things listed there, but.
Yeah, the museums, galleries, arboreums, aquarium, zoological gardens, music conservatories, auditoriums, those are all cultural amenities. And they're listed under the downtown Crozet district definition, cultural arts center. So this is just kind of lumping all those in together.
So one thing I will call out, our botanical gardens, there are currently at least one botanical garden I know of in Albemarle County, which is Quarry Gardens, which is in the rural area. So I think that I'm assuming that this is not a by right use in the rural area. So the fact that there is the botanical gardens, as long as they're not structures involved, are something that's already kind of occurring. It also may, due to their size, the sort of conditions, you may want to think about how that fits.
Botanical gardens specifically?
Botanical gardens specifically, not conservatories, botanical gardens.
That might be something that would be particularly on how it's defined, because I think that a lot of botanical gardens do have a lot of structures. And I think that might be maybe something that we would put into the definition is if it doesn't have structures, then it's just agriculture, you're growing flowers. So maybe something like that.
But except that you're having visitation for,
And that gets covered under our agritourism
Mhm.
okay, okay.
portions of how you,
All
like
right.
how you can use the rural
The
area,
thing.
agricultural land, so.
Okay.
But I mean, I could see other kind of gardens that people may have of ornamental gardens. But I mean, that distinction of structures or not,
Yeah, I think that works.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. And then our last discussion topic, It is, again, I think, a very minor change, but it is technically a change. Um, all of our districts that allow permanent and temporary farmers markets, which is farmers markets that are set up in the parking lot of the school or the church or the park, those are all temporary farmers markets. We have an allowance for what I'm calling permanent farmers markets, which is farmers markets that are not on a site that already has an existing use, like a school or a church or a public park. That is something that the way that the ordinance is written, it allows you to have permanent structures for that farmer's market. So think a French outdoor market where they have permanent stalls and then people just bring in the goods, set it up multiple times a week. It's not limited to 3 days a week. You could have it 6, 7 days a week. Those are the two uses there, permanent and then temporary farmers markets. In the industrial districts, that is the only place in the ordinance that it is treated differently, and it is by building type. It is permitted within an existing building, or it is permitted with a special use permit in a new building. And so just for simplicity, for consistency with all the other districts, our recommendation is just to align it, permanent versus temporary. And then have that be the same in industrial districts. Were there any feedback on that in particular?
And farm stands are completely separate.
Completely separate. Farm stand is one person selling something.
I have a silly question. It might be obvious. I'm
Mhm.
sorry. If you had a piece of, let's say there's a piece of property in the rural area and there's nothing happening there. It's just zoned RA and it's a field.
Mhm.
And 6 farmers want to get together and have a temporary market. What is that use accessory to? Is it accessory to rural area zoning or is it, what if there's no other use happening there?
So currently, we don't have provisions for that because you have to
Okay.
have a site plan for the property.
Okay,
So you can get a site plan for the property,
I see.
but that would be a permanent farmer's market.
Even if they were just coming like once a week on a Wednesday night, okay.
That would be, that's the requirement is you're not developing new land in order to do this thing. That's really where the distinction comes
It's,
in.
yeah, like, the, Albemarle cidery has had some farmers markets, but
Mhm.
the primary use is the cidery, but then 10 farmer stalls come out on Wednesdays. And you can get zucchini, right?
Yeah, and that comes into requirements because we want to make sure that we have traffic. We want to make sure that we have drainage for parking.
Right.
And if we allow it without requiring a site plan, then we don't know that we have those things. We don't know that the road is good. We don't
Get
know
too
that you have.
complicated, yeah,
Yeah.
understood. Well, I think this makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
I do have one additional topic that's not in the 7, but
Mhm.
it's small
Okay.
when we get there.
All right, so anything on at least you gave us an easy topic for number 7.
Yeah, so all we have is just any review, if we wanted to go back to anything, or if we have additional things that were not mentioned.
I believe we haven't.
Well, it's really
No comment.
minor, but it's something I noticed today. And the first time yes, I read through all 40 pages of the permitted uses right now because I had spare time. And we actually have 3.5 pages of uses specific to Monticello. And I was wondering, could we consolidate those? I feel like we've got sort of like whatever Monticello wants to do could simply be the use. Not just-
I hear the ghost of Julian coming.
I mean,
Julian's gonna
it's
haunt
like,
you.
we're casting no aspersions on Tommy Jeff here, but yeah, it's a little
that-
bit unusual to see in a zoning code.
Yeah, that is actually, that is something that is anticipated. All of those uses they're all accessory
Yeah.
to the historical museum that is Monticello. So those are all accessory. They don't need to be listed out. We would permit them. So.
So I have another weird one.
I'm sorry, this has been disallowed.
Yeah, so
Go ahead.
So, and starting off this full disclosure, my wife works at an intentional community. And so, but we have several intentional communities in Albemarle County. We have Shannon Farm, we have Innisfree Village. we also have, oh shoot, I'm always forgetting the name of this place, but there's also a Mennonite, mission home. So, I know that, just my experience seeing industry from far and some of the challenges that it's dealt with in terms of like, is it assisted living facility? Is it this? Is it that? I mean, it doesn't fit cleanly into boxes. Um, and so I know that these are not major, there's not very many of these in Albemarle County, but I just wonder if you could give some thought about how intentional communities fall because they are kind of unique and different, in Albemarle County. So.
That can definitely be a topic of staff conversation, and we can figure out what to do with that. And bring that back to you.
Fair enough. It's a big topic, but worth bringing up for sure. Any other things anyone wants to return to? Leah's giving you the opportunity to actually go back in time, or anything else you want to bring up ancillary to this list?
Say thank you. I can tell a lot of work is went into this, so thank you.
Thank you. Well, if that is all, we have our next work session in June.
Okay.
We are currently negotiating the date on that, currently scheduled for June 9th, but possibly pushing to the 23rd, depending on what happens with Mr. Barnes allowing that.
I just
and-
got asked right before this meeting, so I haven't even read the email.
And we are going to be looking at overlay districts at that point.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for your good work. I will let you guys move on, and we will move on as a commission to committee reports if there are any. I do not have any. Any committee reports? Oh. No, sliding to line.
My committee was canceled for this month, for the Crozet Community Association. But, I did attend the CCA, the Crozet, well, like, yeah, I'm sorry, there's the CCAC and then there's the CCA. And the times that the CCAC did not exist, and before that, the Crozet Community Association existed. So it's a private grouping. But one of the things that I did want to mention there, so I did attend their meeting. One of the things they had a presentation by the school board that I found very fascinating. They're talking about school capacity, a very detailed conversation about the struggle that the schools are going through. Particularly, they talked about like Western Albemarle being over capacity for years and years, which I guess is not surprising, but still kind of shocking. But just it was a very interesting conversation about just what the schools are dealing with in terms of capacity and and what kind of solutions there may or may not be. So.
Okay, all right, then we'll move on to the exciting Board of Supervisors meeting from May 6th by Mr. Barnes.
It was truly exciting, I'll tell you that. We did make a presentation there. It was something that we sort of talked about during the conference plan process. And that was, when we were doing AC 44, and that was about creating a venue for private citizens to come in and, advocate for a change in the future land use map, comprehensive plans, future land use map. And so staff, if you recall, when we had this discussion, it was one thought of maybe having a whole new application, like a rezoning application. You'd have a comprehensive plan amendment application, which the county used to have. And that was taken away because it created a lot of staff work, and a lot of the elements that were being applied for under that application were, many of them were rejected. And so a move in 2018 was to remove that process. And of course, we've gotten, since then, going through AC 44, had other folks asking, especially on specific parcels, how can we change the future land use map? And so what staff has proposed and provided to the board that day was the idea of using our zoning processes or rezoning process, special use permit processes, to, if we have something that comes in that's not consistent with the future land use map, for staff to, sometimes it's relatively minor, and I think we would identify some of these ones that are on Berkmar Drive that we've reviewed over the past couple of years, that the comprehensive plan called for them to be commercial uses and people
Yes.
came in for residential uses. And we brought you the application with recommended approval, but said, you know, one of the unfavorable is not consistent with the comp plan. And this moved forward, which is fine. I think staff wants to continue that thing for relatively small ones, but ones that are more either controversial or much significantly deviating. Maybe they're converting land that's designated for light industrial to residential uses, for example. Or maybe their uses out in the rural area. I think we had some of the mobile home park applications that we reviewed, to give us an opportunity for the staff to bring that to the planning commission and to the board early in that application process. So tell the applicant, submit for rezoning. In your narrative, describe why you think the current comprehensive plan designation gets it wrong, needs to change, whatever. And then we would bring it to you all, not as a chance to approve the zoning or not approve the zoning, but to give us guidance, both to the applicant and staff, of this is something that we think is reasonable. Go work on the rest of the rezoning application. We'll come back and assess it at that time. Or this is truly outside the bounds of what the county would be. And we would recommend that you just withdraw the application. It's the applicant's right to keep it in the queue and keep it moving forward, but to sort of signal to the applicant, this is probably would ultimately be denied.
So don't go through all this effort of design and engineering studies.
And then the third option is, interesting idea. Let us maybe pass a resolution of intent to pick up a staff-driven comprehensive plan amendment process. Under those latter two ones, well, actually really under all of them, because we're under state law puts us under a clock for processing the applications. The applicant would be asked to defer while we either, worked on the comprehensive plan amendment change or what have you. So we went to the board to basically ask if this structure was something that they would support. They did, and it's our job now to come back and tune up the application process, tune up the what conditions and what sort of create the rules for the system a little bit more, which we will, and we'll be bringing that back to the board and to you all for, this is what we're doing. We didn't actually ask the board for them to take an action on this. We were looking more for consensus. We think that the existing processes that we have can be modified to deal with this when these circumstances arise. And so we weren't really looking for approval, just an agreement that this was a process that could move forward, and we received that.
So there's no vote taken.
There was no vote taken. I know, to some, I guess they sort of see it as a potential to expand the development area. I know that was one concern of this. We're seeing some of that happening, I think, in some respects to some of these mobile home parks that are being.
Right. So I guess that's the question is, that was an element of controversy, is that we didn't have criteria developed or a process for how one would come and propose a change to the development area without waiting for the next So I assume, but I'm just going to ask it, that you would also be developing some county criteria for what you evaluate when like say comes and says, I want to develop this parcel next to the development area. And it would be, if it was approved, an expansion of the development area. It seems like you need some criteria, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we need to be able to think about how to adjust those things. The staff doesn't see this as a way to expand the development area per se, but we recognize that there has been, an application that's either adjacent to the development area in Jose, or there was that other one we reviewed that was much farther afield.
So, I mean, I guess the concern that I have with this is that if we were to have if there's a staff-driven proposal, like staff said tomorrow, well, let's expand the development area. We'd have a pretty broad-ranging public conversation about that proposal, right? And I'm sure you get a lot of feedback from people across the county. if something comes as just a rezoning in one part of the county, I would be concerned that it doesn't get the same level of review and public comment that would come if it was staff proposed as part of the entire county. Do you see what I'm saying?
That you're phrasing that explicitly for this question about development area expansion, or just for anywhere in
Like,
the,
it would be
development
for,
area?
it could be for anywhere, depending upon the scope of the thing we're talking about, right? So I mean, if we're talking about, we just had the conversation about major and minor changes, right? I mean, I think, certainly expansion of the development area would be a major change because it's a deviation of a policy that's been in place since, 1980. So, whereas if we're talking about, maybe taking some light industrial and making it more industrial, or, adding a little, like if we're tweaking around the edges, that's maybe a slightly different thing, but I think there are certain things that I think deserve a larger conversation of the whole community. And I'm just concerned that if something comes in as a rezoning, that larger conversation of the whole community may not occur, or we may need to take pains to make sure that it does.
And the point's
in the
well
process.
taken, and I think what we're trying to do is, recognize in the development area that, the market's changing. We only come back to visit our comp plan every so often, and so it really allows that flexibility in the development area. To your point, something that's in the rural area, I think that if it was a significant deviation, yeah, you'd find the staff, and this is hypothetical, I don't want to be boxed in on the rules, right? But if it's a big deal, then you're really into that third category where it becomes something, hey, we need to do this we need a ROI, we need to adjust the comprehensive plan and be akin to what you're talking about, that larger community conversation.
Yeah, I mean, because if, I think one of my concerns, and I brought this up in regards to the trailer park proposal, is that who's to even say that this is the best place? If we're going to expand, who's to even say that this is the best place, or even the best place for a trailer park? So I mean, having that larger planning discussion about okay, well, the need is being expressed that we should expand the development area somewhere for a trailer park, or for whatever the use is. Well, let's now have the discussion about where, and let's have a larger discussion about how to do that, absent that one, separate from that conversation about the individual rezoning.
It's so amazing because each of these things are so context driven. Just to sort of take your point, and maybe if someone is proposing a brand new trailer park, some, mobile home village someplace, they probably would engender the kind of discussion you're talking about. The Beaver Hill, staff recommended denial on that one because mostly the fidelity to the comprehensive plan. But some people will say, it's already an existing one, and expanding it is, these are the things. So it's a nuance on each one. I would just that particular one was much more focused on the property that it's on, and the fact that there's already 40 or 50 mobile homes on the property, and so I mean that's the argument that's being made.
But also the proximity to the drinking water.
And there are all those other issues.
Yes.
I just want to say it's we recognize that there has to be some flexibility in moving forward with the comprehensive plan. No project, no thing seems to be perfect. We've tried to create a venue for being able to use a little bit of judgment based on the criteria. Obviously, it always gets reviewed by both the planning commission and the board, and they have their capacity to judge that.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'll just say, I apologize. I want to just also highlight one other thing, which is there is a whole other way to amend the comprehensive plan. And we were very upfront about that, which is we call it the direct contact. You want to change something in the comprehensive plan, you go to your board supervisor member, you lobby them, and that board member then lobbies the rest of his colleagues or her colleagues. And that is in their purview and their right. So it's a sort of a parallel system that happens. So that was the other aspect of this.
Yes, I just wanted to make the comment that I'm not asking for anything tonight or even soon, but I would still like to, for, in terms just of public transparency, for staff to maybe, spend some time elaborating on what are the criteria that you would look at. It's almost like that idea of major and minor we were talking about earlier, like, let's say that, this just needed to be
Yes.
tweaked because this property is in the development area, but it can't be developed because it has no access. And if we did this tweak to the rural area right next to it, then they could have access and we could get our infill that we wanted. So, like that would be a minor thing that would facilitate a goal we already had versus like some massive expansion, like the brewery project where it was going to be 137 acres or whatever it was. Don't quote me on that, but it was shrunk to 37 for the expansion that was added. So I just would like staff to have some list, even if it's a checklist, because there's not very many people in the audience this evening. But for those who follow this meeting online or look at this meeting later, I just want it not to be seeming like, we have great staff, great professionals. I'm not disparaging them, but I just want it to be a little bit more transparent. Like, what are the things staff would look at and what's major versus minor, and maybe just some bounds around your review process so that people could understand what you were considering when you're looking at this. That's
Yeah.
all.
I'd like to just add something because I think it's really important, and I appreciate what you said, Commissioner Murray, about having the discussion in a broader perspective of where we might go. This is something that I've been saying to staff in my role prior to being on the Planning Commission for a very long time, which is, I've spent some time talking to people at the Water and Sewer Authority about how and when we might go about expanding capacity and infrastructure. And those things are not only very expensive, but they take a long time to plan and implement. So, a new piece of infrastructure, water and sewer wise, could take up to 2 decades by the time we figure out where it goes, how we get it there, price it, and build it. And then we still haven't built a house. So when we talk about the where, like, I think we absolutely need to be talking about it right now. And then I've had a lot of people, including Board of Supervisors, ask me, well, where do you think it should be? I don't have the answer to that question. I don't think any of us do, but we need to start thinking about it or we're never going to get there. If we don't talk about it now, we can't wait another 20 years to talk about it. So I appreciate what you said.
I think there's a middle ground perhaps, and the way I see it and what you just said, which is that if it's going to happen, we should have a community conversation about where and how and the infrastructure that's necessary to support it. And I think that's, and so, as we have the major and minor, to just take that thing we've been discussing, I think, when something crosses the major threshold, I think there should be some way of having a community conversation that's broader than just, the applicant and us in a room.
Right.
That's more far reaching.
Intentional and yeah. Okay, so that's probably enough
Yeah.
fodder for you to take back to staff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There were 2 other items that evening for public hearing. One was the 600 Ryle Road West project. That's was a project you all reviewed between Berkmar and Woodburn on Ryle Road. And that was the one that had like 100, it was a neighborhood model district, 153 dwelling units, 20,000 square feet of commercial. Ringing
yeah.
bells.
Yeah.
That got approved by the board unanimously. The other one that they considered was a proposed church on Prophet Road, right across from Baker Butler. And there were 2 aspects on that. It was an SE for a critical slopes waiver and also a request for a jurisdictional amendment to provide water for the building in large part for fire protection. The building does have water for the use, but the existing house that was on the property wasn't granted that extension of services, just the church. So those are the two items that they had for public meeting that evening.
Okay, thanks very much. Any new business?
No, ma'am.
Old business? Anyone want to dredge something up from the past? All right. All right, with that then, are there any items for follow-up? You can see I'm getting a little
Well, the
punchy.
riparian buffer ordinance, remind us again when that's coming.
Okay,
Riparian buffer ordinance is coming,
Slated for the June 17th meeting right now before the board.
thank you for knowing that date.
Burn-
I know I got
you're
a
fine.
staff report coming my way very soon to review.
Okay, I think we have followed up and I think we are now ready to bring this meeting to adjournment. So I move to adjourn this planning commission meeting until the next meeting to be held on Tuesday, May 26, 2026 at 6:00 PM. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.